Peace. Greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, AKA Mr. Just the Facts. Hey, hit that like button, family. You already know what time it is. When you step inside the house of Be the Power, make sure you ring the doorbell, AKA click the like button. If you are a new member to this channel, your first time being here, you like the content from last night, maybe you are interested in tonight's topic and want to see where we go from here, make sure you hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you can become a part of the notification nation and get alerted, notified every time we go live. Be the Power is in the building. The United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen have risen, and we are on deck. I got my brother Dr. Logic Supreme. I got my brother Josh on. Tonight, we are going to continue last night because there was so much to get through last night, and we still wouldn't even be able to cover everything tonight. So we're going to read a little bit, and we're just going to have some dialogue. If anybody would like to share some of their experience, let us know. We're going to put the link in the chat. Y'all can share some of y'all, what y'all thought about the book if you read it, Peace to everybody that's in the building. BTP, Riri, Conscious Funk, Keenan Wright, Brother Ali Bay. I'm coming to get my bike back. Peace to the gods and to the earths. That woo joint got all of us, in a nostalgic mode right now. For those of us that was brought up in the 5% lessons, today's date is the 6th, and in the 5% lessons, today represents equality. And equality, well, we have a whole book called From Here to Equality, right? This is where we're trying to get. This is where our ancestors were trying to get. This is what they were fighting for. And somewhere along the lines, we lost that fight, especially after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at the hand of the Confederate white supremacists. Let's get into this thing. Brother Logic, brother Josh, I got anything to say before we start,
Start reading.
Yeah, you know, I got something to say, man. You know, I just want to say, you know, this Freedman thing of ours is it's a serious thing, family. And this education that we given tonight, that we gave last night, this ain't just like no happy hour entertainment. This is real history. This is
That's right.
evidence that we're building, like what we doing, like we delivering some of the best kept secrets of your own family history that's been kept from you. Some of the most powerful information is being delivered into the hands of the sons and daughters of freedmen for the first time in ages. You know what I'm saying? And like a lot of our heroes, a lot of our martyrs, a lot of our just foundation workers have been hidden from us, and we searching around trying to figure out what we need to do. We're running around. What do we call ourselves? We running around and we don't have an understanding. You understand? And we figuring, thinking that we got to reinvent the wheel and do these things that we got to do, but we got to understand all of the answers is in your Freedman ancestry. It's in your Freedman history. We wrote the book on progression, civil rights, justice claims. We wrote civil rights justice work playbook. You know what I'm saying? Play by play. That's of our creation. We've been looking everywhere but within. Been looking in Africa, thinking that if you could learn more about Imhotep and Timbuktu and learn more about Songhai, Ghana, and Mali, that you could be more connected to yourself. But that served only to disconnect us further. You understand? The secrets on how to solve our American problems is in Freedmen American history, and understanding and proclaiming, not just having the understanding, but the proclamation of who you are is a powerful thing. We're tied in. Some people were talking about uh we need to be see, if you don't know who you are, you don't even know what you need to be saying and what you need to be advocating for. People are saying we need to be a protected class, but if they knew they freedmen history, and it's not their fault that they don't know, you understand? That's why we're giving this re-education. But if you don't know your freedmen history, you won't even have the amazing realization is that the freedmen are already a protected class with the greatest protections that have ever been introduced to the American Constitution. You understand? If it wasn't for the freedmen, there wouldn't be no civil rights in America, right? In the legislation, and we might go into this tonight, it specifically talks about the freedmen as a protected class. But this unfulfilled law is exactly that. It's unfulfilled. And it is our job, the sons and daughters of the freedmen, to fulfill these laws and fulfill this legacy. And you can only do that with a proper education and understanding. And we're going to get into that and hopefully help that and edify that tonight.
That's right. That's right. Brother Josh, you had anything to say before we start getting it in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, man, it's a whole lot we didn't get into last night. So I look forward to everybody. If you have your place where you want to talk about in the book, I look forward to having y'all on and have that conversation. But this book is heavy, man. It's real heavy. It tells a lot, and it's a lot of lessons learned we can apply or provide allow to provide perspective on how we operate today. And man, I don't. There's too many emotions that go through my mind and my heart when I'm reading this book. But let's get into it. You muted, bro. You muted, bro.
My bad, y'all. My bad. There's so many
There you go.
places to start, but I want to start. I kind of want to start from the end because it's the highlight of this book, and we could go back and go over some things, but I want to get into these ending chapters, right? So I want to start from chapter 34. Let's start from chapter 34. It says Ben Tillman came to be known as Pitchfork Ben Tillman. Pitchfork. For those of you who are Christian or grew up seeing Christian iconography, which entity wielded the pitchfork? Pitchfork Ben Tillman, and with his fierce, one-eyed glower and plebeian, misshapen hats and profane speeches, styled himself a populist. Donald Trump styled himself a populist. Well, at least he spewed populist rhetoric at one point. Anyway, he said the Citadel in Charleston, where the quote-unquote aristocrats sent their sons, was nothing but a military dude factory. That the South Carolina college, where most of the rest went, turned out helpless good-for-nothings, too proud to beg, too honest to steal, too lazy to work. He cursed and ranted against the Bourbons and said he was for the little man. If you know anything about today's political climate, you understand, and there was a video done on this, there's an attack on, I think the Young Turks did it, I believe, an attack on the educated. They call them the elites. Whenever you hear that term elite being thrown around by the fascists in this country, who are usually right-wingers, then you know exactly who they're talking about.
Hey, brother,
see, all of this stuff has its origins in today.
People got the book. They following along. They want page numbers, brother, so they can follow along with you.
Page 264. I keep forgetting to do that. Thank you, Cynthia and Brother Conscious Funk. Thank you. And shout out to everybody that just joined: BB Rodriguez, Juanita Murray, Sister April, anybody else that I missed. Okay, my bad, y'all. Page 264. He was elected governor and then United States Senator. And for 40 years, he fought off attacks by the Bourbons and the real populists alike by reviving the horrors of quote-unquote Negro misrule that he said the state had endured under Reconstruction. Anyway, that was his ticket to power. And for 40 years of his political life, he offered what he called, quote unquote, a solid front to all comers on the bond of white supremacy. So when anybody tells you there's no such thing as white supremacy, we have it early in the history of America, in its Reconstruction period in the South, by those who deemed themselves white supremacists, i.e. the superior race. It says, he stood on the floor of the United States Senate and jabbed his finger and said, we had to shoot Negroes, and recounted again and again how the black man had, quote unquote, tasted blood. He had been infected by unscrupulous northern carpetbaggers with the virus of equality. Today's mathematics, God. Back in those dark days, and that the only way to make sure that it never happened again was for whites to remain united politically behind men like him who weren't afraid to tell the truth about how they had to shoot niggers back then. Quote, the poor African became a fiend, a wild beast, seeking whom he may devour, filling our penitentiaries and our jails, lurking around to see if some helpless white woman could be murdered or brutalized. Well, you know, this brings us to today in the war on crack. Read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. Everything that she highlights in modernity happened in, I guess we could call this antiquity, in the antebellum South. Pitchfork Ben said on the floor of the United States Senate, he always, that was the continuation of the last sentence. Pitchfork Ben said on the floor of the United States Senate, and he always reprinted his best such efforts and pamphlets that he sent to everyone. Quote, we realize that it means to allow ever so little a trickle of race equality to break the chain. So a lot of what we see going on in many of the southern states today is merely continuations of what was started in the South during this time. What we are looking at now, and on one episode we did last year, I pulled up a report from the Southern Poverty Law Center that dealt with voter suppression in the same exact states, in the same exact Southern former slave states. On page 267, it reads, as Pitchfork Ben told it, the moral inversion was now complete, that decent men were forced to fraud and violence, only showed to what extremes they had been pushed. The more brutally they treated their victims, the more it proved that they had been the true victims themselves. The more the Northerners had stood up for the rights of the Negroes, the more it showed how full of hate and hypocrisy they were. The more the federal government tried to interfere, the more the nation and the Negro would suffer. Until the South was left alone by the federal government to handle the Negro as it saw fit, Tillman threatened white Southerners would have, quote, no conception of the word nation, except that it is connected to the word nigger. I want my bros to go in on that because I was watching some documentaries a few months back. And in these documentaries, there were two. I watched them back to back. They spoke about these white militia groups all over the United States, and they were able to infiltrate them. And the woman that was being interviewed in the first documentary that I saw said at the root and the core of their hatred is black people, period. That's happening today. That was happening then. We could never be fooled by who our enemies are. Brother Logic.
Yo, I really like what you read was so important. I want to do a breakdown of that whole piece you just read. First and foremost, right, you have to understand what we're doing here. Not only is this stuff historically important, but it's a matter of evidence for our justice efforts. You know, this is evidence. Understand that the statements you just heard him read were statements that were documented by a governor and later to be installed as a U.S. senator. White language like whites. Did you hear what the brother read? Whites. Look at this man. This is your man. I put it up while he was reading. This is your man. Look at it. So you know the face of these culprits, these criminals.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And what the bloody shirt does is it ties in the criminality that happened after the Civil War. And it tells the tale of how Reconstruction was overthrown, detailed, not just saying that it was overthrown, but telling you who the culprits were, right? Just like Pitchfork Ben. And what he did, he talked about, and this is very important what I'm about to break down. This is how a Freedman analyzes the political space, right? He said conservative. He said conservative. Did you peep that? And what was Ben though? He was what? Was he a Republican or a Democrat at the time?
He was at the time a Democrat. We're gonna get to that too because they addressed that.
But peep what I'm saying, right? It doesn't matter the name of the party.
That's right.
Know who they are by their their political philosophies and ideologies, right? And the Democrats, and say people try to say that there was never any party realignment, but the Democrats were the conservatives. You understand? There was nothing liberal about their political position at that time. So he's telling you right here. If you could reread that quote, man, it's so powerful. And he's talking about the federal government. And then in our political program and platform, we talk about a strategy of radical federalism, right? And that's really what the Civil War and Reconstruction was. It was radical federalism. But our enemies in this history of America have always been conservative, anti-federalists. You understand? Like Pitchfork Bend. They do not want to have the regulation of anyone. They want to be able to turn their regional governments into many kingdoms and rule like barons and lords and kings and queens. But that's not what the foundation of this country was built on. And that's the Union of States don't operate like that. This is a federalist country. That's what the whole war was about. They wanted to go back to a confederation of regional governments, where regional governments wielded power over the central government, and they did not want to operate in a federalist government structure. You have to understand this as freedmen. You have to be sharp with this information. Politically, the freedmen have to be the sharpest out here. And you have to understand that, so you can't be tricked. A Confederate is a conservative, and a conservative is a Confederate.
Fact, brother Josh.
Yeah. Man, I don't know what happened to my picture there, but yeah, man. I wanted to get into a piece. Did you want to continue talking about in chapter 34, or did you want to? Are we good to go on and move on to something else?
Somebody asked me to read the whole page 264 to I think 266, and I understand why. You know, when you read this chapter, you see, you know what you see where these people are doing the same exact thing today, and like Brother Logic said, we have to be sharp enough to recognize that we can no longer be fooled. You know, we've listened to a lot of people over the past 2 years make a lot of suggestions that are simply not in alignment with the freedom fighting political efforts of the freedmen and those who sympathized with us. We have a blueprint. That's why we found it important that this book be presented as a book club book. We were hoping that others would get the book, but you know, some people just want to go along and do a bunch of other stuff that's not in line with this particular ideology. And I mean, the history is clear. It's clear.
But listen to this though, right after that, right? Listen to what they say. This is why I say this is more than just a history book. This is evidence, family. Listen to what came out of that. Listen to the omission of guilt here. This is a mission of guilt. This is what we need to be talking about in public spaces, in political spaces. You have to, no one's addressing this. No one's addressing this stuff. Listen to what the man said. And he continued, how did we recover our liberty? By fraud and violence. We tried to overcome the 30,000 majority by honest methods. The 30,000 majority was the freedmen. We had a numerical majority. You understand? He said we tried to overcome the 30,000 majority by honest methods, which was a mathematical impossibility. After we had bore these ingrates for 8 years, life became worthless under such conditions. Under the leadership and inspiration of Merritt Gray, because he planned and brought about the straight out movement of 1876, right? Look up and research all freedmen. You understand? Get your pens and papers out, right? Take notes. Look up the straight out movement of 76. We won the fight. In 1878, we had to resort to more fraud and violence. And so again in 1880, who does this, right? That's what I'm saying. Our case is so easy. They're just outright telling you about their unconstitutional, violent, terroristic criminality. This is all a criminal operation, family. I'm not just calling it that. He's telling you that right now. He said we could have did it legally, but it was mathematically impossible. We couldn't beat them if we played by the laws. But we violated all the laws in America, and we did it with fraud and violence. He's the governor is telling you this. He said the registration law and 8-box system was evolved from the superior intelligence of the white man to check and control the surging, muddy stream of ignorance. Hey, another note. The registration law in 8-box. Look that up, family. Master that history, that knowledge. You understand? Right? He said, and this must be our justification, our vindication, and our excuse to the world that we are met in convention openly bloody. Openly bloody. We are met in convention openly bloody. Family, he's not figuratively speaking at this point. He's talking about the Democratic Convention and they're openly having blood on them after committing these real acts of violence. This is not poetry, family. He's telling you the story of how they overthrew Reconstruction, killed our family members, robbed the freedmen of their birthrights. He said, in this, and we met in convention openly, bloody, without any pretense of secrecy. He's telling you, we did it in the open. Like, look at this bold, audacious admission of guilt. Like, who cares about the Constitution? Listen to this stuff. The governor is saying this, man. Said to announce, they met openly without secrecy to announce that it is our purpose, as far as we may, without coming into conflict with the United States Constitution, to put such safeguards around the ballot to in future to so restrict the suffrage and circumscribe it that this infamy can never come about again. Now listen to what he said right there. Listen to this madness. He said, our pretense announcement, blah, blah, blah. He said, without coming into conflict with the United States Constitution. Now listen to what's going on. How in the world are you openly admitting that you're violating the Fourth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed equal protection under the law? You're violating the 14th Amendment. You're violating the 15th Amendment. You're admitting in detail your actions to suppress the voting rights of the freedmen by violence and fraud, which with the 8 box and outright violence. You're saying that you met covered in blood at your convention openly and without any kind of secrecy. How and then can you after that say we're doing this as so long as we don't violate the Constitution? After violating it like that, that's the utmost disrespect. You see? And so, man, we can go on and on. You have to get this book, family. You have to. Josh, do you got somewhere to go in this book, man? Because this thing is just unreal. This is the rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. I was just, I'm going to share the screen here. I wanted to talk about, since we were talking about Morgan, and we started at the end, so I don't want to jump back too far to the front, but I want to just talk about, you're talking about a criminal operation, and I think we can get into like instances where they pretty much overthrew the government. So the Confederates lost the Civil War, the war, so they can pretty much have their own nation and they can control the states of the nation. They lost that. So then they started waging war, like guerrilla war, essentially, within the different county and within cities and state governments. They essentially overthrew. They couldn't overthrow the United States, so they started overthrowing the states. They couldn't overthrow the Union of States, the whole United States Army troops. So they said, we just overthrow, Yazoo County. The Yazoo City, and we'll overthrow New Orleans, and we'll overthrow all these other places wherever we feel like overthrowing, wherever we can do it at. And all of these people, that whether they were on the jury, whether they were judges and doctors and lawyers and policemen, they were people, the sheriffs and all this, these were all white leaguers and Ku Klux Klan members. So let me read this. Let me share this right here. This is 20, chapter 27. All right. Let me know when y'all can see it. It says, after 2 weeks in hiding, Albert Morgan slipped out of his place of concealment in his brother's house one night, disguised in old clothes. See, let me pause. At this point, Morgan had called on the federal government. He had called on the federal government over and over and over to bring help. And pretty much he just had to give up, you know. So he was like, man, I gotta flee because they trying to kill me. You know, these Klan members in the White League, they trying to kill me. So he says, disguised in old clothes, and made his way cautiously to the stable where his hostler had left his sorrel mare saddled and ready, and rode out of town. 9 miles out of Yazoo City, some colored people at a prayer meeting at a Negro church warned him of a white company occupying the town ahead and lent him a guide to lead him a circuitous route to Jackson. He got there the next morning, alive, and with more details of what had happened at the meeting in Yazoo City 2 weeks earlier. He had begun to speak when the man his brother had nicknamed the Human Hornet, one Henry M. Dixon, had come in. Dixon was a small, wiry, nervous man with light hair, thin lips, and a girlish face who had harried Morgan and his brother for years. He had also had the nickname the Rope Bearer for the part he had played in some lynchings. He commanded a group of men who went about military style wearing ribbons that said Dixon Scouts on them. Dixon and several other white Democrats in the hall started heckling and interrupting Morgan. Morgan made a reference to the Board of Supervisors. A Democrat in the audience shouted out, "There ain't one of them fit to be in there." "What do you say of Mr. Rowe, born here and raised here, a man of property and means here, and a good citizen?" Morgan retorted. "What have you to say of Captain Bedwell?" Dixon leapt to his feet and began shouting, "He's a thief! He's a thief!" A colored man answered, No, that's all you know about it." And Dixon pulled out his pistol and shot him. So that's crazy, man. You can't even speak against, how dare you even think that you can speak against what I'm saying, challenge what I'm saying, blah. So says Morgan up on the stage commanded the peace, and then they started shooting at him. The lights over the hall where Dixon and his men went out, but the lights on the stage shone brightly. The end of the table where Morgan was standing took 3 slugs. The wall behind him was tattooed with bullet holes. Somehow they all missed him. He scrambled out of a window and fell 15 feet to the bricks below. The alarm bell at the market house was ringing. The white men with rifles were running towards there. A few days later, Dixon and his scouts went out and hanged the colored Republican leaders in every supervisor's district in the county. After they hanged one man, they went into town, brought back a magistrate, reassembled on the spot as a coroner's jury, and declared that the deceased had met his death by hanging at the hands of persons unknown. They killed Morgan's deputy, a white Republican. The next 7 weeks to the election passed in a nightmarish succession of images limned in terror and lies. The Democratic state chairman telegraphed Washington, "Peace prevails through the state." Yo, what? What? I mean, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. It gets worse and worse and worse. But, that's what was going on. That's what's going on. They just was killing and stealing elections indiscriminately. We got example after example. Y'all got one y'all want to talk about?
And it still goes on until this day. That's the point that we got to stress, that what was happening then is happening now. We got to stress that. We have to be able to identify it. And that's why this book is so important.
Absolutely. Yo, I just want to go through some real quick. First, I want to say, right, you really have to do your homework, right? We got some great homework gifts. Go look up that history. If you don't have the Bloody Shirt, first and foremost, get the Bloody Shirt. Read what the Bloody Shirt talks about, what I'm going to suggest, and then do your own additional research on the history. The massacre and the violence of the overthrowing of Yazoo City in Mississippi. That is one of the most crazy scenarios. So we always hear about Wilmington and Rosewood. Well, some people don't hear about Wilmington, but Rosewood and Tulsa. But if you look into the politics and everything that went and surrounded what happened at Yazoo City in Mississippi, is just crazy history, family. And you never heard about this stuff. But I want to read real quick. I want to talk about a few people. I'm just going to show you their picture and some people that you can research. People that you have to know as freedmen, right? First, John Richard Dennett, who we really owe a great honor to for going that. He's the brother in the book that's traveling around the South, archiving and documenting really all the history that's in the bloody shirt. That's really what this is, right? It says who traveled the South and wrote about what he found there for the Nation magazine. The magazine was called The Nation. Prince Rivers, who escaped slavery, fought for the Union, and became a South Carolina legislator and trial justice. Here's a picture of those two, right? That's Prince Rivers on the bottom, that's Dennett up top, right? You have to know those two people as freedmen, right? Here's another person that you have to know, very crucial to Mississippi history. All my Mississippi family, as a freedman, all my Mississippi freedmen, you have to know this person, right? Albert Ames, who won the Medal of Honor at Bull Run and lost the fight against white terrorists as the Republican governor of Mississippi. You have to know about him. That's him right there. You have to know about this man. You have to, as a freedman. You have to know that history. You have to know about his battles with white terrorists. You have to know about this man's story. It's in the bloody shirt as well, right? Blanche Butler Ames, who was a famous Washington beauty, the daughter of a Shakespearean actress and a Massachusetts congressperson. You don't really need to know her, but I'll show you her anyway. Right? Reason why she is significant is because of her bloodline. So I guess her story is very important as well, right? Albert T. Morgan, this is who Josh was just talking about, who settled in Yazoo City, married an African-American woman, a freedman woman, right? And barely escaped with his life when white rifle clubs seized power. That's a part of the Yazoo City story. You got to understand that. That's Morgan right there, right? Carolyn Highgate Morgan, who came to Mississippi from her native New York State with her mother and sister to teach in schools for the freedmen. And that's her right there. That was his wife. You got to know these people, family. These are important people. Now, these brothers are important as well, right? Lewis Merle, he's on the top left with other officers of the 7th Cavalry. Study the history of the 7th Cavalry in the Union, right? Who fought the Ku Klux in South Carolina and white leaguers in Louisiana. See, we're not even taught in American history that the American military, the army, had to fight white terrorism in America. You're not taught that history. That's freedman history. The only way you find that out is going down that freedman rabbit hole and getting that. James Longstreet, who was the most brilliant general of the Confederate Army and became a parisha and scapegoat in the South when he supported the Republicans after the war. That's this big fella there, right? Like these characters are so important. These three characters, these are the last people I'm gonna just show, and then we're gonna move on. But you got to know about these people and their stories is so important, right? From clockwise, from the top, right? Martin Witherspoon Gray, Matthew C. Butler, and that despicable Benjamin R. Tillman, who helped to plot and instigate the Hamburg massacre. You have to know about these criminals. These three criminals, you understand? Enemies forever of the freedmen, right? You got to know about the people. I hope y'all wrote all those names down and you research that history. You're gonna be so sharp with it. Yeah, if you get just that underneath your belt, I'm telling you.
That's right.
And Naheem, if you don't mind, I just wanted to put like a tail into that Dixon dude, because I started on Dixon and I just wanted to show make a point about what happened to Dixon, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, so it says here, this is chapter 33. It's the beginning of chapter 33. So Morgan, it says Albert T. Morgan was given a job by the Republican administration in Washington as a second clerk in the pension office, and there he dutifully toiled until Democrats gained possession of the White House in the lower person of Grover Cleveland. The new president appointed LQC Lamar, a Democratic senator from Mississippi, as Secretary of the Interior, which oversaw the pension office, and Lamar fired him. Morgan received a clipping from Yazoo City in the mail from one of his old enemies. The local paper reported that Morgan's old nemesis, Henry Dixon, the Human Hornet, remember the guy I just read about, who pretty much just start shooting, killing, and they started lynching and murdering every freedman politician that
page
was
275. Page 275.
There you go. I'm reading from Kindle, so I don't know exactly what page it is in the book, but it's right at the beginning of 33. So it says, the local paper reported that Morgan's old nemesis, Henry Dixon, the Human Hornet, had a falling out in a power struggle among the Democrats and tried to run an opposition ticket against the official slate. And suddenly, the hero of 75 was a reviled man too. A resolution adopted by the local Democrats called Dixon a murderer, a gambler, a bully, a thief, a man of violence, of blood, of lies, a man who will pack juries, a low, unprincipled demagogue in politics, and an infidel in religion. End quote. The local Democrats accused Dixon of having taken several $1,000s off the body of Patterson, one of the colored men he had lynched when his rifle club had seized control of Yazoo County back in 1875. Dixon published a card defending himself. Listen to how he defends himself, right? Listen. He doesn't say, I didn't take the money. Listen to what he says, stating that it was well known that all the money he had taken off the body of Patterson had gone for Democratic campaign expenses, in particular to serve, quote, as a bribe to have the ballot boxes stuffed if necessary. These are criminals, man. Like, he's like, no, the murder didn't matter, and the theft didn't matter. And really, the misappropriation of funds, campaign finance, unethical acts, that ain't like bribing and all that. That's not. I was helping the Democrats, so everything.
Well, look,
good.
George, let's take a contemporary look at how something like that played out in modern times. Brian Kemp versus Stacey Abrams, or Stacey Abrams versus Brian Kemp.
Right.
This dude was at the time the Secretary of the state of Georgia. He made sure to purge the voting rolls of largely our people whom had any little discrepancy with how they signed their name, et cetera, et cetera. Then he was in charge of the counting of his own votes. I don't know if I ever heard of that in the history of this nation, but it has never stopped. We as freedmen are still fighting the Confederates, and our fight is being watered down by the left wing of that bird that is white supremacy, right? Our fight is being watered down. Josh shared, I'm not going to even bring it up right now. Josh shared something in the inbox earlier. And basically, it was about, it was a ad where this guy, the Lumbies, I believe they were called, this guy's running for office. I can't even remember where at the moment. And the Klan tried to take over this town.
Yeah, I think it's North Carolina.
Deep.
It's like Hayes Pond, North Carolina, or something like that.
They came out deep, ran the Klan off, protected protected the town against the Klan. And then somebody came on the thread and I might as well say it, start saying that this guy was the person that voted against same-sex bathrooms, as if the one thing has something to do with the other. And this is what I'm talking about. We have to take control over our political narratives, because if we don't, we are going to be eliminated. We are slowly but surely being erased. And I'm going to get to that in a little while. So, Brother Logic, was there anything that you wanted to add on or get into before I get into some more of these last chapters?
Yes, well. So, Brother Josh was talking about Morgan. And the story of Morgan is very, very interesting. There's a lot of good history of every one of these characters. I just want to read you something about that. The Yazoo Banner is the name of this song. Like, if you don't go and research the history of Yazoo City, you're gonna be missing out, family. Let me tell you the song. Right? They made a song about Morgan. You like to hear it? Here you go. Right? It's the Yazoo Banner. Air if you belong to Gideon's band. Old Morgan came to the southern land with a little carpet bag in his hand. Chorus, if you belong to the Ku Klux Klan, here's my heart and here's my hand. If you belong to the Ku Klux Klan, we are marching for a home. Old Morgan thought he would get bigger, but by running a sawmill with a nigger. If you belong to the Ku Klux Klan, and then it repeats the rest of the chorus. The crop it failed, and the sawmill busted, and the nigger got very badly wusted. If you belong to the Ku Klux Klan. And Morgan is a gay old rat, and the boys they called him a polecat. If you belong to the Ku Klux Klan. But some close at his heels would tag and call him hero scallywag. Like, this is, I just thought that was interesting, right? To read that little song. This was the Yazoo City Banner song about Morgan. This was the city song. And it was like, this is singing glory songs to the Ku Klux Klan, family, who the United States Army had to basically put out. The first Ku Klux Klan is not the second rise of the Ku Klux Klan. Read about the first. That's another homework assignment, Freedmen. Get on there, research the whole history of the first Ku Klux Klan and everything that happened. Man, that's something else. But yeah, let's keep traveling, brother.
All right, so I'm back in chapter 34, and this is on page 269. I brought up being erased and replaced. We've touched on that on the Be the Power platform extensively over the past year. We've shown, not via our own opinions, but the studies, what the data represents to us insofar as immigration and how it hurts our people specifically, how blackness has become aggregated so that anybody can be black, right? Remember the case I bring up all the time of Mustafa Hefni, a black man from Egypt. Well, when Mustafa Hefni came to the United States and tried to apply for a small business loan, they told him that you can't just waltz in from Africa and claim to be black. You're white. Mustafa Hefni was like, what are you talking about? I'm black, yada, yada, yada. I bring that up for a reason. Although he felt that he was ethnically a black man, and he wasn't trying to do what people are doing today, the immigrant black class. It is important because it shows the fallacy of race. This book highlights how whiteness was elevated. The next book that we're going to do on our book club, make sure y'all get this book, family, White by Law. The glare is in the book, but the name of this book is called White by Law. We are going to deconstruct whiteness and the racial constructs for the false classifications that they are. But blackness, and I mentioned this on last night's stream, for those of you who are tuning in tonight, make sure, and you didn't see last night's stream, make sure to go back and watch last night's stream. We really, really broke this stuff down. The term freedman went from freedman to Negro strictly to black. And then once it went to black, the floodgates of immigration were opened and everybody could come over here and claim to be that. And then the things that were set aside for us by this government, like affirmative action, went to everybody else except us. which is why we make up about 50% of the homeless in this country. 50% of the homeless in a city like Los Angeles alone, places that we were forced to migrate to due to the terrorism of these same devils from the South. So I said all of that to prime y'all for what I'm about to read. Page 269. If even the preservation of the Union was obscured in this haze of romance and armchair generaling, then all the more was the colored man. The United Daughters of the Confederacy launched the campaign to ensure that the quote-unquote slander that the South had fought for slavery was expunged from school books, and orators at Confederate reunions hotly denounced such an infamous imputation. John Mosby, the partisan rebel cavalryman who had hanged Yankee soldiers from trees and terrorized the enemy's rear, wrote an old comrade that he was fed up with such oratorical nonsense. He confessed, "I don't go to reunions because I can't stand the speaking." Mosby, like Longstreet, was one of those freaks of nature, a Southerner who thought it was the role of the defeated to accept defeat and move on. He supported Grant for president and became a diplomat in the American Foreign Service and scarcely ever set foot in his native Virginia again. Why not talk about witchcraft if slavery was not the cause of the war? He wrote an old friend. I always understood that we went to war on account of the thing we quarreled with the North about. I never heard of any other cause of quarrel than slavery, Mosby said. I never apologized for anything I did during or since the war, he said. I committed treason and am proud of it. See, he's speaking for the whole of the Confederacy. He continued, I am not ashamed that my family was slaveholders. Neither am I ashamed that my ancestors were pirates and cattle thieves. He's telling you about his deviltry and his devilishment, and that he's not ashamed of it, and that the Southerners basically should report it how it went. But that's not what they did. The book continues. But this was another voice in the wilderness. For the ladies of the United Daughters of the Confederacy and the rest of the South were shaping a memory in which the South had done no wrong, had fought not for slavery, but for great constitutional principle and, quote, the most sacred rights of self-government. We know that means states' rights. Had committed no treason, but had asserted its unshakable right within a, quote, compact of sovereign states. They're not sovereign. They are subsidiaries to the federal government, although they have a great degree of autonomy, to withdraw whenever it chose, had in the end submitted not to the greater right, but merely to the greater force. The story of Reconstruction was seamlessly sewn to the same fabric of romance the South had been weaving about herself forever, going back even before the war. The South as virtuous victims, the moral benignity and even superiority of slavery, the perfect harmony and kindest relations that existed between master and slave, the fanatical design of the abolitionists who cloaked based politics and hypocritical moral cant about slavery, the vengefulness of Northern radicals who cloaked their hatred of the South and hypocritical moral cant about equal rights. So the UDC ladies insisted that the school books also explain how the South had redeemed herself from the bayonet rule of Reconstruction and how the Ku Klux had been formed for, quote, self-protection against outrages committed by misguided Negroes. We can no longer let this continue. This is why they're battling against CRT. What was happening all of those years ago is happening right now in front of our eyes. It's not about picking the right fight. This is our fight. Other people and other groups, they may want to pick other fights. That's on them. This is about the right fight. This fight should not have never ended, but it did. They beat us into submission. They beat the North into submission. I brought up last night the compromise of 1877 between Tilden and Hayes. And what happened is that they agreed that Hayes would be the president, and they withdrew the troops that were protecting us from the South. So we were left with nothing. We had to fend for ourselves. And the book, it speaks about not having the proper resources. The government, the federal government, to really fight on our behalf. So it got to the point where it was like, well, let the Southerners just deal with the Negroes, because there's pretty much nothing we can do. And last night we read where Provisional Governor Perry said that so long as we don't adopt the 13th Amendment, the Negro will be forever protected under the name Freedmen by the United States military. Those protections are still there, family. They're buried. And right now, what we're doing with this information is unearthing them. We have unearthed House Resolution 29, and several other House resolutions that were passed for the freedmen but never enacted. Things that would have made us whole citizens in this country. We would never see the violence in the inner cities that we see now. In fact, there would be no inner cities. Not in the way we think of them now. There would be no urban areas. There would be no hoods. And when I say urban, I mean urban in the sense of the hood, the ghetto that this government created. They created this. That's why this book is so important. We have to understand that we were slaves in this country and that we were freed in this country. And we know that. We read last night how these provisional governors acknowledged our freedom, but then they themselves, through the state's laws, rewrote their constitutions, wrote up and drafted laws to oppress our people. Remember the case of Dred Scott, the two dissenters, Justice Curtis and Justice McLean. They knew that the ruling by Chief Justice Taney and his 7 cohorts was unconstitutional. And they said that the Negroes did in fact vote in at least 5 states in the South. And this was before the Constitution of these United States were ratified. They voted during the times of the Articles of Confederation. They were just being oppressed, suppressed in the South. The Negro was a citizen, doubtless, just with disabilities. And we didn't know that. We've been taught a whole bunch of stuff that we've been repeating over and over and over and over again, to whereas we just boxed ourselves out of democracy. And how did the lesson say? Heathens from afar came, and in one short hour, they had taken over everything. Go ahead, Brother Logic. Oh,
Man, bro, I just want to follow up with where you left off at. Now, I want to just, Freedman, you're going to have to study hard and learn fast. We're going to drop you with some knowledge tonight. Everybody go get this book, right? I want to further talk about everything Naheem was just saying about the overthrowing, the rewriting of history. What I'm about to read is a perfect follow-up to how they did it. See, the book don't just tell you what's done, it tells you who did it and how it was done, right? And specifically who it was done to, right? And so if the Freedmen family could turn to page 267, I'm gonna start there. Because this is a perfect example of everything, Naheem just talked about. It says, as Pitchfork Ben told it, the moral inversion, this is how they're recrafting the history. They're doing it in real time. As Pitchfork Ben told it, the moral inversion was now complete. The decent men were forced to fraud and violence, only showed that what extremes they had been pushed. So he's absolving all of the white violence and terrorist acts, saying this is just where y'all pushed us to do this. It's y'all fault. We're the good people who did all this killing and murdering and robbing and raping, right? The more brutality the more brutally they treated their victims, the more it proved that they had been the true victims themselves. Do you hear that? Listen to this, family. This is what Ben's saying. He said the more brutally we had to treat the so-called victims only proves to show that they're the real victims. Imagine that kind of psychology, right? The more the Northerners had stood up for the rights of the Negroes, the more it showed how full of hate and hypocrisy they were, right? So standing up for this is the genesis story of all of the pushbacks and all of the Confederate ideology that we're fighting right now to this very day, right? You fight for justice, you're the problem, right? This goes all the way back to Pitchfork Ben and before him, right? And so he continues on. He says, the more the federal government, they're anti-federalists, remember that, these conservatives are. The more the federal government tried to interfere, the more the nation and the Negro would suffer until the South was left alone by the federal government to handle the Negro as it saw fit. Tillman threatened white Southerners would have no conception of the word nation except that it is connected with the word nigger. This is Governor Ben talking, right? Once again, Mississippi had shown the way. The white man there had figured out how to take away the colored man's vote for good without directly violating the 15th Amendment. See, this is the evidence. Now look at how it was done. Masterful uh devils these people are, right? He said not that the colored vote amounted to anything by this point. The battle for political control was long won. The South, as Albion Tourget, write that down, Albion Tourget. As a freedman, you need to know everything about this brother, right? As Albion Tourget had so uh, accurately observed, had long since reversed the judgment of Appomattox, right? That's what Albion Tourget said. We read that last night. He said that the Confederates reversed that decision that was just deception. When they surrendered, they just said, you know what? We're taking too many L's on the battlefield. Let's deceive them. We're going to surrender to them and we're going to plan our next move. And we talked about that, right? But there was still the battle for memory and myth and appearances. And at the Mississippi, 1890, the Constitutional Convention, one delegate had risen and addressed the 133 whites, 130 Democrats, one greenbacker, one quote conservative unquote. And when they make the distinction between the Democrats and this one conservative, it's just basically saying this conservative wasn't affiliated with the Democratic Party, not that the Democratic Party wasn't conservative, because they was conservative too. They're just separating him from the Democratic Party. Just want you to understand that, right? And one national Republican and one Negro Republican in attendance. And this is what the quote was. This is a delegate, right, at a convention. This is evidence, family. Sir, it is no secret that there has not been a full vote in a fair count in Mississippi since 1875. That we have been preserving the uh, ascendancy to the white peoples by revolutionary methods. He said this is no secret. We've been preserving our rise by revolutionary method. In other words, we have been stuffing ballot boxes. Like, look at the stuff that they say on record. We've been stuffing ballot boxes, committing perjury, and here and there in the state carrying the elections by fraud and violence. The public conscience revolted. Thoughtful men everywhere foresaw that there was disaster somewhere along the line of such a policy, as certainly as there is a righteous judgment for nations as well as men. No man can be in favor of perpetuating the election methods which have prevailed in Mississippi since 1875, who is not a moral idiot. The old men of the present generation, wrote one reader of the Jackson Carolinian Ledger, can't afford to die and leave their children with shotguns in their hands, a lie in their mouths, and perjury on their souls in order to defeat the Negroes. The Constitution can be made so that this will not be necessary. The solution in Mississippi and later in South Carolina and a good many other southern states that followed her lead was a section of the Constitution requiring voters to understand and explain a clause of the state constitution that to the satisfaction of a register who would read it out loud to them. We're talking about the literacy laws, family, the introduction of voter suppression. This is the genesis of it. You have to understand this history, right? A South Carolina delegate to his state's convention said of the understanding clause. Research the understanding clause is the essence and the beginning of all the voter suppression laws that directly affect our people, right? This is the beginning, the understanding clause. My understanding is that this will disfranchise every Negro. The problem with a simple literacy test is that it would disfranchise a good many illiterate whites too. He's saying, hold up now, damn, we gonna stop a lot of white folks from voting too, because we dumb as hell. More black folks can read probably than we can. And that's what he's trying to have a good common sense conversation, right? He's the only one that got sense. He said the convention also inserted into the state constitution a whole list of petty crimes, conviction of which would lead to permanent disenfranchisement. These include receiving stolen goods, bigamy, adultery, fornication, wife beating, arson, and larceny, but excluded murder. Ain't that something? You excludes murder, right? Albion Tourget had seen the day coming when the whites of the South would succeed in capturing the national memory along with everything else. The memory. See, we're resurrecting the memory of the truth by invoking this Freedman identity in history. We're resurrecting. See, we forgot. It's like we have been hit over the head and left for dead, and we done forgot we was freedmen in our origin story. See, we're teaching you the Freedman origin story right now. You have to know that, which is our origin story. It's your origin story. You have to understand where you come from. Right after the war, he had predicted this. He had predicted that it was only a matter of time before the romantic haze of the Southern cause would obscure the jagged edges of the truth. Within 30 years after the close of the War of Rebellion, popular sympathy will be with those who would. This is what Albion Tourget said back then. This is his prediction. He said, within 30 years after the close of the War of Rebellion, popular sympathy will be with those who upheld the Confederate cause. Our popular heroes will be Confederate leaders. Our fiction will be Southern. He said, our fiction will be Southern in its prevailing types and distinctively Southern in its character. He had written, that's what he wrote. Tourget became a noted writer of fiction himself after the end of Reconstruction. It's lengthy, but I'm gonna finish in this in a second, family. He said became a noted writer of fiction at the end of Reconstruction, and he wrote a novel called A Fool's Errand. Get that book, family. A Fool's Errand, right? That was a fictionalized account of his own travels in the South battling the Ku Klux Klan, right? But back when he made the prediction, he was unknown as a writer, and as he later recalled, his assertion was regarded as too absurd for a refutation, right? At that time in 1888, he could write that there are yet 7 years to elapse before the prescribed limit is reached, but the prediction is already almost literally fulfilled. Not only is the epoch of the war the favorite field of American fiction today, but the Confederate soldier is the popular hero. Our literature has become not only Southern in type, but distinctively Confederate in sympathy. The dashing Confederate cavalier, he's sarcastically observed, had become such an inevitable figure of romance that, so far as our fiction is concerned, there does not appear to have been any Confederate infantry at all. Nothing but heroes. This is what the Daughters of Confederacy did. Tourget knew it was going to happen. He knew how it was going to happen, but he saw it coming with
That's
the
right.
overthrowing of Reconstruction. And all that he predicted happened right now. And they totally confederatized. This is why point 3 in our program and platform for this United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, right, is a immediate, full-scale deconfederatization of America, family.
Y'all see, I pulled that article up. Trump vows to veto defense bill if it removes Confederate names from military bases. What Logic just read from Albion Tourjay's prophetic. I mean, that was a prophetic tone. It's just as simple as that. He foresaw it. He's seen the direction that the country was going by observing how the South, via the the United Daughters of the Confederacy, that's, let me say, why we took the name the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. We have to counter them now. We have to bring this real history back. We see this man was damn near prophet with what he foresaw. You can't tell me that Trump was good. You can't. The current president, Joe Biden. Joe Biden, because none of them are good for us. Let's get into this last chapter. And if anybody want to come up, we have a pretendian in the chat.
So you peeped.
Yeah, of course. Let me see what the pretendian said in the chat.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know the term, pretendian means pretend Indian. You know, them people that
facts
pretend to be
those
Indian.
People who are ashamed of their true identity, you know what I mean? And want to veil themselves in escapism.
Now, we're going to pull up his comment, then we're going to show his hypocrisy in 1 second. We are far more than 13% of the population. Why are we using freedmen in place of American Indian or just American or American? Which, what the hell is that? These people are... Anyway,
but there's no we don't have a problem cleaning this stuff up because that's our duty as freedmen.
That's our
clean
duty.
up
it's our job.
This foolishness, right? What does it say? We are far more. First of all, whoever this is talking about being an Indian, but their name is blackface. All right, I guess I don't know if that's a tribal distinction, chief blackface or little blackface or whatever you want to be. To Freedmen history, blackface is derogatory, family. So I don't know why you would even come on here with a name like blackface and not try to frame that for us. But you say we. I don't know who this we is. We disaggregate things on this side of the nation. We are far more than 13%. No, you can't be. If you're, I don't know who define this we. Maybe you're Anglo-Saxon or of the Germanic tribes. I don't know. Because historically in Freedmen history, people in blackface, underneath that blackface was Anglo-Saxon skin and Anglo-Saxon people. We are far more than 13% of the population. Why are we using freedmen in place of American Indian? Because first and foremost, there's no such thing as an American Indian, right? That's a misnomer altogether, because none of the indigenous nations of people refer to this land as America or themselves American. None of them formed any of their nations and had American in their name. None of them referred to themselves as Indians. And none of their nations were called India, right? This is something that the conquering nation of America said we was going to bestow upon them as undesirables. The American Indians
would know that.
You would think he would know that, right? And so the only true Native American is the American freedman, if that's what you meant to say. I don't know why. And all this other American pseudo nonsense is absolute foolishness, and we won't stand it. Now,
so let me just
go
say,
somewhere and study.
Let me say, right? We're using freedmen because our ancestors were emancipated from slavery. And this was the legal name given to our people, freedmen. You said, why not use American Indian? Well, let's, for the sake of argument, stick with American Indian and try to view it through the lens of Mr. Blackface. Well, not through Blackface's lens, but the lens of his argument. These Indians that you speak of, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, and there's a couple other, two more of them. I can't think of them right now. I think Seminole is one. How they got Seminole as a tribe, I don't know. And there's another one. Anyway, these were slave-holding tribes. Let's school blackface up real quick. There are people, our people, fighting right now to get rights in these tribes, to be recognized as citizens of these tribes. They call themselves, for instance, Cherokee freedmen, Chickasaw freedmen, etc., Choctaw freedmen, etc., etc. It seems that blackface didn't know this. Now, let's stick to this person's name.
Don't have a clue.
Okay. He says, and why are y'all still using bottom caste, civically dead law terms, i.e. black? And yet this person's name is
blackface.
You see, these jokers come onto the screen and we have to address them. Choctaw, thank you, Ali. We have to
absolute nonsense, man.
We have to school these people, you know. And look at what he says now. Wow, freedman simply means American Indian, American by the college. So he's saying that, but he says he has plenty of books. It would be the
but no understanding. He has plenty of books, but no understanding.
Well, it would be the wise and prudent thing, instead of just typing this stuff up, simply give us a source, a book
or
name,
come on the program,
or
and let's
we can
talk.
put the link in the chat, and you can come talk to us, blackface.
Oh, yeah, come talk to us, blackface.
Come talk to us. Let us know if you want the link. We are American freedmen.
He is probably as white as that white chief. What was his name? Who was the chief of the Cherokees for 40 goddamn years? John Ross, goddamn white man.
I think his name.
You know what I'm saying? He's an Anglo, as any Anglo has ever been Angloed, was the chief of the Cherokees for 40 goddamn years.
Yeah, the pretendians are in the building, y'all. And we have to address them. We cannot let these people, you know, just.
And they don't got sense of, see, they not even smart. They don't even got sense enough to know that all of the powerful history is into their freedman side of the, and that's the only side of this Indian relationship that you hold that is predominantly evident, right? All of you look like me, you sound like me and Naheem, but you talk about your Indians. You're talking about you understand, and then you don't even have a plight. Y'all don't even have a plight. You don't if you thought. Go ahead, what you got?
No, go ahead, bro.
Yo, I just want to tell him. I just want to talk to these pretendians for a second. Only the freedmen, Cherokees and freedmen Creeks and freedmen Chickasaw and Choctaws, they were only freedmen because of what my freedmen ancestors did for them. We made the government reconstruct and move in such a way that in those treaties, they even called, see, he said we're American Indian, but he don't know, he got all these books, he don't know nothing about American legal history and American jurisprudence. In these treaties, we identified and disaggregated the nations of Cherokee and said that there you got those quote unquote indigenous Cherokees and you got the freedmen. Study the history of the Cherokee freedmen, where they came from, why they were called freedmen in the first place, and how the Cherokees acquired them. Do that history. How they get some damn slaves. Where they get them from. Right.
But look, and let me read this real quick, Logic. Let me just read this real quick. This is from Bovier's Law Dictionary, 1940. See, they could never come with this. They just type stuff in the chat, or when the ones that are brave enough come on and say a bunch of crazy stuff like the guy did last night. So this is from Bovier's Law Dictionary, and it says this of freedmen. The 15th Amendment protects the elective franchise of freedmen and others of African descent, and this was the object of its adoption. So there was no argument. There was no confusion about where the descendants of freedmen came from, not from the freedmen themselves and not from the white folks, largely who brought them over here, right? But today's pretendians, well, they say that they've always been here. And we give them links to come on this program to show and prove. Like we had that one brother that argued us down that his family was never enslaved. And Ali simply says, so you mean to tell me not one person on your mother's side and now this is after the brother done ran it for minutes and minutes on end. Ali said, do you mean to tell me not one person on your mother's side or your father's side didn't have one slave? I mean, you didn't have one slave ancestor on your mother or father's side? The dude said, well, I don't know nobody from my father's After saying he was sure that none of these people just make up stuff. And these are the escape hatches. And that's why we, like I said, we not just closing the escape hatches. We're pulling up to these escape hatches with the cement trucks, prying the lids open and pouring quick cement down.
Let me say, hold on. Let me say something, man. This dude Blackface and people of the like, right, man? Stop coming in here talking like that, man. Y'all don't know anything. And the stuff that y'all come in the box with, the stuff y'all want to get y'all want to get caught up with, man, the shit is weak, man. You don't even understand your own history, and y'all want to be teachers to the public and whatnot. You can't lead yourself across the street and you want to come teach the freedmen. You understand? You don't even know what you're talking about. You don't understand that the policies dictate the terms in government. You understand? And the policies disaggregated a specific group of people in this country. See, you're so trapped up in colorism. You're so confused because your thoughts are amalgamated and all you can see is colorism. That's the poison of the race classification system, which is a product of white supremacy. You understand? Or you think he made a comment talking about the dark-skinned people of America. I don't care how dark your skin is. I'm talking about bloodline lineage. You understand? I'm talking about my blood. I'm talking about my family. Your skin complexion that doesn't matter. And when identifying who you are, and when we talk about connecting ourselves to the freedmen, we're not connecting ourselves to a last name, right? What we're connecting ourselves is to a legacy. What we're connecting ourselves is to a history, to a birthright, and what we're talking about is the federal government designated a special protected class, the first special protected class in America, and called them freedmen. And what we're telling you is that we were those people. They made a whole bunch of constitutional amendments. There was a whole war fought for these people, right? Many of us, over 200,000 of us, participated in this war ourselves. You understand? And what they did was we created the first protected group. What do I mean? I'm talking about serious protection policy being passed, right? Was it fulfilled? No, but the policies were made, right? The 14th Amendment is the biggest protection law ever introduced in American policy. And that was freedmen work. You understand? Not Indian work. You understand?
That's right.
I don't want to hear nothing about no Indians when we talking about freedmen history. You want to tell me sacrifice the great history of Prince Rivers, Robert Smalls, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and Hiram Revels, and all these great men for some Indians? Are you out of your goddamn mind?
That enslaved us, America.
Bro. That enslaved us.
The Indians
you want me to sacrifice that and call me the slavers and say, oh, I should be ashamed of this freedman name? This freedman is a title of liberation. You know what we had? We fought a war to be called freedmen.
That's right.
You want somebody to be ashamed of it? You sound crazy. Robert Smalls killed the slave masters, took the boat, and came back and bought the slave plantation that he grew up on and liberated all his people. That's the freedman story. You understand? Not no goddamn Indian story. You understand? We're not doing none of that feathers and tomahawk bullshit over here. The Indians are the most insignificant group of people in American history. And I don't care how nobody feels about that. And when you're coming at the freedmen, you better come correct. You understand? Y'all didn't build and invent and come with all of the great advancements of American society. It wasn't Indians that made the filament to the light bulb and produced the street light. It wasn't Indians that did the first open heart surgery. It wasn't Indians that came up with the algorithm to get America out of the orbit and get the re-entry point back into the world, the go, no go formula. It wasn't no goddamn Indians that did that. It was the freedmen. And don't come in here with that bullshit. We ain't got time for that. We will crush you with an avalanche of freedmen success and freedmen history. It was the freedmen who created the 1866 Civil Rights Act. It was the other freedmen acts of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which got the Indian freedmen liberated. We had to impose that legislation on the Indian tribes, the so-called civilized tribes, but they were the slave-owning tribes, right? We had to force the same laws to get y'all full tribal membership rights. It was the freedmen that liberated y'all. You understand?
They're doing it today.
The language in your own, and we're doing it today. Maxine Waters, freedman, fighting to liberate your goofy ass, and you talking about being a goddamn American Indian, and we shouldn't be talking about being freedmen. That is absolute.
Man, most of these people
nonsense.
freedmen anyway, bro. They just be,
that dude name is
most of
Daryl or
these,
Jerome. He running around probably saying his name is Big Chief Buffalo Wings or something like that. That dude probably from Texas somewhere, grew right up in the hood in the 5th Ward, 4th Ward, 3rd Ward, whatever. You know how they break them down in wards. These people are, I mean, they're just ashamed of their history, Josh.
Man, hold on.
and even a lot of these people are Cherokee
let me tell
freedmen.
Brother Josh, it ain't
that.
what they got to understand, and this is so important to me. This is in my blood and in my soul. It ain't Cherokee children hands on them bricks down in downtown Savannah, Georgia, where the little kids was laying bricks in the streets. That's the freedmen children out there, the sons and daughters of freedmen out there laying them bricks that you can go see their fingerprints in the goddamn bricks right now. And you can go see them in South Carolina. You understand? It was the freedmen that was built the United States Capitol. It wasn't no Indians that built that. You understand? It was the freedmen that did that. You understand?
That's right.
Don't come to me talking about we should be some American. We should be calling ourselves American Indians and sacrifice all this great history and flush our birthrights down the toilet. Are you crazy? That's madness. And go get all of your weird leaders, your top clowns and your Dane Clownaways and your all of them.
Ishmael Bey. I know you hear us calling you out. I know you hear us calling you out, Ishmael Bey. Come
all
through.
That peyote done went to you and made you gone mad. All that goddamn peyote.
Go ahead, Josh. And after that, we're going to read a little bit more, and then we're going to just chop it up a little bit. That's it.
I just wanted to say, shout out to the freedmen of this 5 civilized tribe, 5 slave on the tribe. Shout out to those freedmen. They still fighting for, freedmen liberation with their particular struggle, and we I support that. I support it. I'm sure y'all support it too. I'm saying for me, but I support their claim, for justice, and a lot of those people are, then obviously they're American citizens, and they probably have shared ancestry with American freedmen. So I just want to say, shout out to those freedmen too, is still fighting, but we fighting over here.
That's right. So let's read this little bit, and then we could chop it up and see if somebody want to come on, and then we'll close it out. This is the last chapter of the book, family.
And quick, I just wanted to clarify. I'm saying that in juxtaposing that against pretending. You know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot of people are gonna see the pretendians and they're talking all kind of crazy stuff, and they're getting them mixed up with the real freedmen of those slaveholding tribes that are actually doing real work, and it's causing some confusion. So that's why I'm going to put a distinction between the two. But go ahead, brother. I just wanted to clarify.
Definitely. And Sister Juanita Murray said her family is Chickasaw freedmen. Look, we support the Chickasaw and Choctaw and Cherokee freedmen and the other freedmen of those tribes. We support them. We actually would like to work with them in the very near future, because we know that these people are of a bloodline lineage that can trace to being enslaved by the 5 slaveholding tribes. Unlike some dude named Jeru or Gerard from the hood that watched a Dane Calloway video, which is filled with nothing but 100% falsehoods, and now all of a sudden he's an Indian or indigenous or whatever. I mean, these people are just out to lunch, and we got to eliminate this stuff, and we got to address it.
We're going to do it, and we're coming out very soon with a full, just like we're deconfederatizing, we saw it fit and altogether proper to come up with a program to fully de-indigenitize a lot of the people out here who have been victims of this poison. And we're going to straighten them out with the Freedmen truth.
That's right. So somebody said insane Dane. Yes, Dane Calloway is crazy. Like, Dane Calloway is like a troll. He's like a Tekashi 6ix9ine. He doesn't believe none of that crap. I've called Dane Calloway out to a debate. I've been in his comment section. This dude commented on one of them videos and says something to the effect like he doesn't want to debate me, and he actually agrees with a lot of what I'm talking about. I was confused because I don't agree with none of what this guy's talking about.
Basically,
Nothing.
he's saying, I agree with you, brother, but if I lie, he's like Paul in the Bible, the false apostle. He's like, why tell the truth when I lie and my subscriptions grow? Why tell the truth when I tell lies and my bank account flourishes? The people love lies, right? And that's what Dane Calloway tells them. He's like, damn, Abba, I don't really want to debate you because I honor the truth. I know what the truth is, bro. You got it. But damn, man, I need to get this money. And these people, they are easily fleeced with this nonsense I'm pushing.
That's right. All right, so let's get through this last chapter, family. This is the last chapter of our book club book, which is The Bloody Shirt. This book is a must-have if you are serious about this Freedmen movement. You know, I don't know if people are serious, but we're going to talk about that a little bit after I read this chapter. It says, and this is page 279. I remember the pages. We just be reading, and I kept being reminded yesterday of the pages and today. So to page 279. As men live and die, so towns live and die, and their lingering deaths have the same tawdry emptiness. Hamburg's population dwindled to 500. And the white men from Augusta would come over when they wanted to stage a gamecock fight once in a while in some derelict lot. And workmen from Augusta came over and dug up clay to make bricks, leaving behind empty craters of contempt. And someone would put a torch to a building from time to time for the fun of it, until it looked to a passing visitor like the vengeance visited upon Sodom and Gomorrah. Louis Schiller came back and hung on, and enough water under the bridge had passed by 1893 that he and Tommy Butler were arrested together in Hamburg on the charge of selling whiskey on a Sunday. They hauled Schiller. Now, these devils admitted to all of the crazy violence that they did, but they arrested the Butlers for selling whiskey on a Sunday.
That's what was so funny to me, right? They just told you how they turned small communities into Sodom and Gomorrah just for the fun of it, but arrested some people just for fun of it. We're gonna if y'all don't know the Sodom and Gomorrah comparison, you can't thumb your nose at that. So they're decimating entire little communities just for fun, and yet they arrest some people for selling liquor on Sunday. This is some crazy shit, man.
That's right. That's right. At the turn of the century, a new town called North Augusta was founded up the river a mile on the bluff, and in the winters, rich northerners came down to play polo and golf and shoot wild turkey. And business flourished, and churches and a fine high school were built. In 1928, the old Sibley building burned to the ground, and the North Augusta firemen came and watched it burn as the newspaper reported with a straight face that they hadn't had any water nearby to douse the flames. But they did work to make sure that the wooden trestle of the railroad nearby didn't catch fire. So we can assume that the Sibley building was one that was owned by our people, right? And they just let that one burn to the ground. In 1929, 2 huge floods swept down the Savannah River, and the last physical remains of Hamburg were swept away with them. One day, 51 years after the year of liberation, when the freedmen of Charleston had honored the martyrs of the racecourse, there was another grand celebration on the streets of South Carolina, on a South Carolina town. And school children again assembled and sang, and prayers were again read, and orations again delivered, and again was a march to unveil a memorial to the dead. Now, remember, in the beginning, we didn't read it last night. We referenced the march, the memorial service that the Freedmen had gave. And now I'm kind of wishing we would have read that last night so people could understand what we're reading right now, and if they didn't read the book. The state of South Carolina had provided some of the money to erect the monument, but private donations were raised too. And the Honorable B.R. Tillman, that devil, had contributed $25, and Mr. Henry Getson had too. And on that day, 1,000 people came and cheered and shouted the rebel yells as the Honorable D.S. Henderson retold the stirring story of how young McKee Merriweather had perished for the cause of liberty in the Battle of Hamburg. It was not a massacre in the brutal sense of the word, declaimed the speaker. It was a rebellion against wrong, an armed rebuke to tyranny and oppression. Ignorance and vice had reigned in those dark days. The Supreme Court of the state had been given over to a superannuated Jew, a shrewd carpetbagger, and an ignorant black Negro, that being Prince Rivers, who was probably smarter than any 5 of them combined. A Negro militia terrorized decent white people. This was a lie, but this is what they told. Military satraps ruled the state at the point of bayonet. But there in Hamburg, quote, the very citadel of Negro republicanism, the flame had been lit and ignited the white man's revolution of 1876. And then, at the top of a picture-perfect square at the top of the prosperous main street of North Augusta, some pretty schoolgirls in pretty dresses unveiled the obelisk, revealing carved inscriptions. But let me say, those obelisks were created by the United Daughters of the Confederacy, which is why it's speaking about these little quote-unquote pretty girls in dresses unveiling them. It says, the memory of the young hero of the Hamburg riot, who gave his life that the civic and social institutions which the men and women of his race had struggled through the centuries to establish in South Carolina might be passed on unimpaired, and the quote-unquote supremacy of Anglo-Saxon civilization assured. As for Hamburg, it vanished even from the maps. In the 1950s, a dam was built upriver, and the floods that had periodically swept over the empty flats of grass and weeds and brambles where a town had once stood came no more. In 1988, the dam was renamed the Strom Thurmond Dam in honor of another Edgefield hero.
Sheesh.
As a boy, Strom, and for those of you that are just hearing the name Strom Thurmond for the first time, you are way behind. You are way behind. We suggest you catch up. Look this man up. Strom had been taught by Benjamin R. Tillman, Pitchfork Ben Tillman himself, to shake hands with a firm grip, had followed Pitchfork Ben's footsteps to become the state's Democratic governor and U.S. senator. Then in mid-career, Strom had switched parties and became a Republican, as in time did most other Southern white conservatives, once the Democratic Party became the champion of voting rights for African Americans in the 1960s. And the grand old party saw more opportunity in appealing to disaffected white supremacists than in recovering its heritage as the party of Aldebert Ames and Prince Rivers and James Longstreet and Albert T. Morgan that it had once been so long ago. In 1998, an enterprising North Augustan built the golf course on the derelict land by the now tranquil river and the row of what real estate agents call quote-unquote executive homes went up right by the river's edge with the pretty view. The bulldozers that cleared the home sites hit a few old bricks buried in the silt and clay and pushed them into a pile. And that was all there was to show that people had ever lived there before, except for the ghosts of old streets still to be seen, or perhaps merely imagined, where the new houses ended, a few mown avenues still improbably wide, streets of a town that was no more and a city that had never been. Men die and towns die, and cruelest of all memories die. And when North Augusta celebrated its centennial in 2006, Hamburg was nowhere to be heard of, though the McKee Merriweather Monument was duly cataloged in an inventory of local historical sites to the town compiled for the occasion. They described it as a monument to the only resident of Hamburg to be killed in the Hamburg riot of 1876. The end. Remember, they killed maybe hundreds of freedmen alone in Hamburg. They murdered them indiscriminately. You looked wrong at one of these Confederates and you got killed.
Yeah, I just read earlier when one person was like, no, blow.
Wait, Josh, hold on, real quick. Cynthia, and I meant to bring it up, but I didn't want to stop reading. Side note, Strom Thurmond was a great friend of Jim Crow Joe Biden and his hand-picked eulogist. This was Joe Biden's right-hand man. That's why we call him Jim Crow Joe. Strom Thurmond was a racist. He threw the word nigger around judiciously. He didn't care. He fought for segregation all of his career. This dude was in the Senate.
And I'd bet $1 to a donut. He participated in some lynchings and got some Freedmen blood on his hand.
Of course. And that's why old Jim Crow Joe Biden don't want to do nothing for our people. And said, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. That sounds like some old segregationist babble to me. That's what it sounds like nonsense to me.
Yep.
Yeah, my bad, Josh.
Yes, sir.
Nah, you got it. So yeah, I was just saying, you know, I gave it one example about how when one person just stood up in opposition to have a difference of opinion of one of those former Confederates, the dude just pulled out a pistol and put a bullet in his head. It was no debate. He just killed him.
Yep. And then Strom Thurmond.
Look what the OG.
Yeah.
The OG Otis says Strom Thurmond's daughter remained silent until his racist ass died. She was black, a product of rape by him. They hated our people, but they sure loved them a good piece of chocolate tail. They sure loved that.
Yes.
We wasn't human.
Yes.
But we was human enough for them to rape.
Just imagine. And see, this is what I'm saying, family. There's so much, like, you can't just nonchalantly carry the Freedmen banner and think it's just like doing anything else. There's a heavy responsibility and duty when you start proclaiming your identity and lineage as a freedman. When you know the history, you understand we have to be the smartest and the wisest and the leaders of this thing because of what our ancestors built, what they did, what they lived through, what they died for. You understand? And what they left for us to continue. We have to be the best. If the reparationist movement was an army, the freedmen got to be the special operations. We're the special forces. Right. You understand?
That's right.
And the freedmen are the special forces of the reparationist movement. So you can't just rebrand your organizations or whatever it is you doing and just say, oh shit, the Freedmen name, that's hot. I'm gonna be the next hashtag movement. I'm gonna come up with the next hot fucking slogan and think that that's gonna rock. Because this Freedmen thing is an ancestral, it's a divine and national movement, and you can't be out here faking that shit. You understand? And you're causing all this confusion. You don't have no knowledge, no wisdom, and no understanding of the Freedmen history and the Freedmen mission, and you just out here loosely, irresponsibly throwing the Freedmen sacred name around. The Freedmen name is a sacred name. For all the reasons we've been talking about for the past 2 nights. You understand? So you got to be serious about this thing. Our ancestors died about this Freedmen thing. This Freedmen thing of ours is the only thing that has shaped and changed America. And there ain't nothing that has ever yet still can be compared to what the Freedmen political action can accomplish. Ain't nothing yet rivaled that. You understand? So when y'all out here doing your thing and you calling yourself Freedmen, make sure you got yourself studied up, man. Because if I see you and you would recognize yourself as a Freedman, I'm gonna approach you and we gonna talk. You understand? And I have to make sure you carrying this thing correctly, that you right and exact as a Freedman.
That's right.
Because we can't get caught out here. It's too important for us to get caught out not knowing how to articulate this thing, how to fight for this thing. and how to defend this thing. You got to understand that the Freedmen legacy is not no joke, family. This is not no wave to ride. This is
Shout
a
out
legacy.
to brother
man.
Ibrahim, man.
Shout out to the Freedmen brother Ibrahim. That's my man's right there.
That's right. That's right. Let's speak to that. When this Freedmen thing started to really move, we noticed that a lot of people started to pick it up, and it caught fire pretty fast. But what wound up happening is some of the people that picked it up, I don't think that they're serious. And we got to talk about it, and we got to call people on it, because this is our ancestral fight right here. This is a continuation of that. This isn't a safe space. This is for freedom fighters. Our ancestors died. And there's a story in this Bloody Shirt book about one of our freedmen ancestors that these devils caught. And I think they asked him if he had any last words or something to that effect. And he said, you make sure to tell him I ain't die no coward. That's that Freedman energy right there. You got to be involved in something that you're willing to live for, that you're willing to fight for, that you're willing to stand for, and that you're willing to die for. And I don't think many people are ready for any of those, to be honest with you. They just want to, like you said, Brother Logic, jump on to the next hashtag movement. But that's not what we're doing over here. We are making sure. Look, go back and watch. Start from the beginning of Be the Power. Our understanding grew exponentially, so much so that it started to outpace the people that when we came into this movement, we were looking at to help assist in its growth. In that, we started building brick by brick. The United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen was a concept that we came up with in May of 2020, probably even before May. We just incorporated it in May of 2020. Go back. That's all you got to do. Watch our progression. Brick by brick, we've been building this thing. We were able to secure some high-profile interviews. Our last two interviews being some of the most powerful, with Charles Blow, speaking about the back home strategy. The last one was with Warren Mosler, the one who invented modern monetary theory that shows that the United States of America can print as much money as it wants, that this whole thing about debt ceilings is just a game. My brother Logic has mastered that element of it. And my brother Josh is right behind him. I just got the basics of it. I'm a just want the basics on certain things type of. If I could get somebody else to explain in detail, I'm going to let them explain that in detail. Point blank, period. So brick by brick, policy prescriptions is coming up. But first, we got to build this movement out. This needs to be a real, tangible thing. This got to be something that you tie your proverbial horse to and say, I'm rolling with this group because they represent. What are you going to say? Our characters is shady? You can't say that we're grimy, that we're liars, that we're sin. You can't say any of that. You simply cannot besmirch our characters at all. We've been right here in the public, in your faces for over a year. And the only thing we've changed up is our understanding of certain things when we got superior information. That was it.
That's right.
Some people don't want that. You got, like I said, and I keep mentioning, you got people, real quick, you got people calling Dr. Sandy Darity, who wrote the guide to reparations on Clubhouse. They calling Dr. Darity a op. These people supposed to be in the reparations movement.
Mm-hmm.
They supposed to be what? Nah, those type of people gotta be. You gotta go at those people because they're enemies to the cause and they don't realize it. It's just as simple as that.
And some of them do realize it, but it don't matter. if it's by concentrated effort or mistake. We have to take care of freedmen business, and it is what it is. And so this movement is a precious movement, and we all have to be serious about it. And one thing we have to be unified on is, what is the freedman way? You understand? You have to understand, as a freedman, your political philosophy is radical federalism, right? And the initiatives, the programs, and the things that you think about have to be in the wheelhouse of radical federalism. We're federalists. It was federalism that broke uh, uh, slavery. It was federalism that broke segregation. It was federalism. You understand? We have to understand that. And we have, in order to really access federalism in the most powerful way, we have to secure states' rights, which calls for a strategic relocation of the freedmen back in their states of origin that we were forced out of through white mob violence, domestic terrorism, and public subjugation. We must return home. If you're calling yourself a freedman and you're not talking about a radical federalist strategic relocation back in the South, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're off the mark, family. That is the only thing. There is no other strategy that can give you political power in America as a freedman other than quantifying your numbers strategically. You know what I'm saying? Consolidating them strategically in the states. We talked about what the greatest fear was in this book. They kept telling you we had numerical majorities, right? But what we are able to do now, our ancestors wasn't able to do, and they still produce more results than we're producing today. We should be ashamed of that. We should be ashamed of that. So now, if we just come back home, bring those numbers back home, and start working this freedman agenda and this freedman philosophy, we can secure all of the birthrights that our ancestors left for. What are those birthrights? Those birthrights is everything that's in the 1866 Civil Rights Act. Those birthrights are everything that the 14th Amendment was supposed to do. But it's all about your understanding of it. The 15th Amendment. These are our birthrights. And the land, if you're a freedman and you don't really understand the history of Special Field Order 15, you have to study. If you're a freedman and you've never researched and read Thaddeus Stevens' HR 29 proposal, you have some studying to do. You have to know this stuff. You have to know these things. You must know these things. And so, as the freedmen, we're the special operations of the reparationist army. You understand? We have to be the best. If you're a reparationist, you got to be the best. You got to be better than the best, above the best. You understand? And so owning this freedman identity comes with a responsibility, right? And a conviction. Oh, the great Ali done joined us, my man in the building. You know what I mean?
Peace to
and
the
so you
gods.
have to understand, peace to the God and peace to the earth. That's why, and everybody, all the freedmen, and the only way we can really truly achieve our aims and objectives is just through freedmen solidarity, getting back to this is that old time political philosophy. We're not coming with a new political philosophy. This is that old freedman philosophy. You understand? Political freedmanism. You understand? That's what we got to have in our hearts and in our minds and in our actions. And so a lot of people calling yourself freedmen, but you're not talking and you're not moving like freedmen. You're moving just like what you used to move like, but under a different name. And if you're going to change your name, you need to change your ways and change your philosophy and your ideology, because if a name change is warranted, so is an action change and a thought change, and your patterns need to change. So don't change your name out there and say, well, this freedman thing is hot. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to call ourselves freedmen too, but we're going to keep peddling the same uh, uh, hamster wheel we've been running on. No. If you're going to do a freedman change, take it serious. Get into the history. Understand the unity. Understand the 12-point platform program. And understand what solidarity means for us and what we all need to be doing. Ali, talk to him, B.
What's good, Ali?
Peace. Man, you guys did an excellent job. I thought Cynthia was going to come on and drop something, or Arthur Ward or somebody, man. I was I was looking forward to the family coming on and adding on about the book, you know what I'm saying? But I was just, listening in, man, and looking at the chat and all of that kind of stuff. I think y'all did an excellent job. How long have we been on so far?
2 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So this at that point where, if anybody, You know what I'm
Yeah, come
saying?
on
Anybody
up.
My man Blackface dipped out. He soon as
Oh,
I
he
put
dipped?
that link in there, he was like, "It's time to go to bed."
Ah, all
But if
right, all
anybody
right.
wants to come on and share their understanding, their thoughts, their things, how this book moved them, now's the time. Come on up, family. Talk about it. If you got any questions, put them in the chat right now. We'll address any questions. If anybody wants to come on, we'll drop the link again. You can come on. We'll have a discussion. Come, let's talk about it. What was anybody's what if you don't want to come on, you just want to put it in the chat. What was some of you all's favorite parts or some of the takeaways? Because if we started tonight's program with the end of the book, right? But I want to end tonight's program with the beginning of the book. You understand? And it really talks about why we're so special. But I want the people to come on in. You know what I mean? If you want to talk about something before we close out, now is the time.
Yeah.
The
So
subtitle of
Ali,
the
what
book
did
should
you think
have.
about
Yeah,
tonight's stream and some of the points that were brought up?
Man, it's all amazing history. And, I was trying to follow along and pull up more information about some of the things you guys were talking about while you were reading and breaking stuff down. I think that, it's just stuff that we have to keep building on with the family. We have to keep building on and digging because it's like you know, a treasure trove of information. And it's just so much that needs to be covered, and there's so much that's there, you know. So I think this is just a great pathway that we're on, and it definitely separates us from everybody else because we're moving, we moving different. We're moving different with it.
Oh yeah.
yo, you
Yeah,
see that we got some good
I had something
comments.
I wanted to read.
Hmm.
Is it a comment? It's a good comment on here. Some good comments. A good question out there.
All right. So DP said he'd come on real quick. Let me put that link in the chat.
No doubt. Peace, DP.
Hold on, what was that joint?
Peace to the brothers. Peace, Kato. Peace, Cynthia. Peace, Juanita. Peace, my life, Sisterella. Peace to the family,
Can y'all hear
poetic
me?
justice. Peace,
Mm-hmm.
conscious funk. Yep. Peace, Sister Shanna. Yep.
So I'm reading from chapter
Let me tell you something. Let
6.
me tell you something before you start reading, right? Let me tell you something. This Freedman thing ain't nothing you can just take and think that, just because you recognize yourself as a freedman, you ain't gonna have to prove yourself wise and to be the best from among us. We don't have no time to just be like, oh yeah, anybody who latches on to the freedman identity and the freedman culture has to automatically be elevated to representing the entire freedman group. No, proficiency must be shown. Discipline must be shown. Dedication must be shown. Expertise must be shown. Because when we reemerge as freedmen, we want the best out front. So what you have to do is do a self-inventory. Look in the goddamn mirror and say, am I the best? Or am I just here? Am I just here so that I can be active and people can say, look at me, I'm doing something? No, are you the best? And if you can seriously sit down in yourself and say, I'm the best person to represent the reemergence of the freedmen in the statesman arena, then go forth. But if you can't use the freedmen as an ability to try to say, well, just because I'm a freedman, I've earned the support. We just read history of our brothers and sisters who had to brave death, our brothers and sisters who showed expertise of policy and government, and they knowing just because when you was a freedman back in the history, it wasn't just any old freedman to do just because they a freedman. Hell no, it was the best. Hiram Revels was the best. Prince Rivers was the best. You understand? So are you the best is what you need to ask yourself. We're an elite group when we talk about doing civil rights justice work. Are you the best? Are you the most refined? Are you the one? Ask yourself that. You understand?
Poetic Justice
Yeah.
has a question. So I know we need to read and educate ourselves. What is the next step you want us to do?
Well, see, what you got to do is focus on that first step. A lot of people always stumble and fall because they're looking at step 2 before they execute it safely. Step 1, the education is going to lead you where you need to go. So just get submerged in the education. So we get overzealous, and movements happen like this all the time. And Fred Hampton was talking about it in the interview, right? The passion is there. And sometimes we have to just let that passion burn and burn. And at that time, we have to consume the information. Now you can start getting the understanding, because we don't want to just get fueled with a bunch of information with no understanding. And now you don't even know why it's a Freedmen thing in the first place. You understand? So get the education piece. Education can't be looked at as something that we got to hurry up and get out of the way. Education has to be a focal point so that you
How
really
did the Black Panthers do it? How did the Black Panthers do it?
When you joined the Black Panther Party for self-defense, you had to go through a 6-week education process before you can even talk about party ideology in the public. You know what I'm saying? So this is a serious thing. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm a Freedman. I'm going out in the public. I'm advocating. I'm talking." You got to be serious and dedicated, man.
Facts.
Facts.
So we got the angry old dude is on from the bunker, the OG Otis. We got DP on, Divine from Brooklyn.
Divine, peace, peace, OG.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening.
Peace, brothers. Peace.
Peace. What's going on?
Look, I just want to get in and get out, because I'm telling you, y'all put a heck of a lot of shit on the plate today. It's banquet time. But look, I want to say to you, as you were going through all of that history, all the way back to the wording and the understanding that they had to do what they needed to do as long as they didn't violate the 13th. The reality is that's the same thing that happened to the 63, 64, 65 civil rights, all that stuff with minority and women. I think I said one time when I called in on the show that really helped to get reparations out into the limelight. I told a real life story, man. Nobody could have told me at the time this was happening in the little country barbershop. I'm about 10 miles away from where it is. My father actually built a little barbershop. When the civil rights stuff was going on, all the educators around here, that some of them worked at Hampton University, at Hampton Institute at that time, high school and superintendents, all of that stuff in the all black school system. And now we're migrating, and some of them losing their jobs. So now they're going to work at Langley and all these military bases. So they got secure jobs. But they come in on Saturday morning and sit down and talk about what's going to happen with this new civil rights bill, Then I see Lyndon Johnson on television, black and white, of course. And he's talking to the people at Howard. I lived this. This is my youth. And I'm in there listening to the intelligent, educated people tell you how great this is. Then when they would leave, my nickname was Marty. The older man that couldn't read and write, this is Marty. Read that article, because these Negroes be using the newspaper and stuff, sitting on the counter explaining to you. And I go ahead and read it out loud. I'm making money, man, because, they tipping me a quarter, 50 cents, man. I leave barbershop. I got more in tips for reading than I got for sweeping up the damn hair. So my thing was, they explained to me, they said, let me explain something to you, little T-model. By the time this thing gets signed and everything get in action, the white man gonna find a way that all that stuff he gave to the minorities, he gonna find a way to put somebody else in there. What happened to the following year? The bill became women and minorities. So they explained to me that the white man was going, and look, when it happened, they told me, didn't I tell you? He took his wife, his sister, his daughter, and everybody else and gave them a chunk of your pie. You'd be lucky if you come up with a full slice. That was the wisdom of people that had not been indoctrinated with knowing all the facts. They were just what you were saying about all this stuff going on with the Negroes talking. They were living in their life and holding themselves to a truth. But you've already said the white man has no standard of truth other than a narrative that leaves him in power.
That's right.
And I want to finish by bringing it back into something more contemporary, because I could stay on here for a minute, but I want to tell you something else y'all touched on. I'm going to bring it up to today. Had a conversation with a bunch of sharp-ass people that would call me a angry old black dude and all this stuff. And I said, look, let me explain something to you. If you want to continue, I talk about the lost cause all the time. It permeates this thing. When I first met Dr. Darity, as a matter of fact, I told him I thought that was more the law. My battle is between how effective was a lost cause versus 1710 meritorious manumission. Because I think the white man, them two acts, the white man knew exactly what he was doing. Because not only does he manipulate the law, he gets into the psyche of anybody that gets tired can always cash in and move on. That's why I don't put a lot of stuff in these people what y'all call them mission drift people. I call them work avoidance people. They getting paid to disrupt, and if you follow them, you help them disrupt. So
that's right. I love that. Classic work avoidance.
That's right.
And let me close with this one. The idea that this white supremacist idea was relegated to just the 13 Confederate states. Let me say this to you. They keep telling you about Alabama, Georgia, what Texas did. They all Confederate states. But what they don't tell you is something like 40-some states are trying to do the same damn thing. And they supposed to be Democrats on your side. Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. And if they tell you something, back up and go and find out what shit they're hiding from you. Be strong, my brothers. I love it. You know
same here, man.
Peace, man.
You know what?
You.
The more I talk to you guys, the more I'm gonna go ahead and take credit for discovering and kind of like Don Cornelius or Barry Gordon. I'm gonna have to go ahead and
you might as well take credit for it, right?
My story. Look, if I started it about it, I'll make sure we share the royalties. Peace on, my brother.
All right, bro.
Same to you.
Peace out, OG.
The OG from the bunker created BTP, man. For those of you who do not know, the old man from the bunker created BTP from the bunker. So we got brother Divine from Brooklyn on, brother DP. What's going on, brother? What are your, what were your thoughts about the book and some of the commentary that we were able to give? Did you come to some of the same understandings? Did you feel that we did a good job? Did you feel that we did an insufficient job in explaining and giving breakdowns? What were your thoughts? We would like to hear them.
Man, that was a lot of questions right there, brother Naeem. But first and foremost, I don't think y'all guys need any validation from me. And I think all the chat members would agree as well. You guys did an amazing job. And just for the simple fact that you guys just recommended this book for the book club. I mean, I've been a part of many book clubs, with various people, with hashtags and all that too. But this one has probably been the most impactful. And like Brother Logic said, as freedmen, this is the education that we need. This is pertinent. This is necessary. This is the proof, as well as the evidence that we need that bolsters and proves our justice claim. And so, even though it was a hard read, I'm not gonna lie, at certain points, it was necessary. You know what I'm saying? It was, and I know even saying it's a hard read, I feel kind of guilty because it's like, man, I'm talking about it's a hard read. Reading what our ancestors went through and they lived it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so if you will allow me, I wanted to read something, and I think this is one of the biggest takeaways that I got. I'm reading from for everybody in the chat. I'm reading from page 144. This is a part of it's detailing the sham of a trial that Lewis Merrill, one of the officers of the 7th Cavalry, who was sent in to fight the Ku Klux in South Carolina and then later in Louisiana. So let me read that real quick as fast as I can. All right, here we go. In selecting the original cases for trial, only murders and the worst outrages were chosen to begin with, Merrill continued, which meant that a degree of clemency had already been shown far in excess of what any reasonable men would expect in any other place. Hundreds of witnesses would find their lives at risk were the guilty now set free. Within just the previous 2 days, a white man, a prominent witness, had his throat cut ear to ear and now lay between life and death. The victim of one of the most notorious of the early Ku Klux murders in York County, a worthy and industrious colored man, had left a widow with a large family. They had been in comfortable circumstances through the man's industry and thrift, But now she was driven from her home and was eking out a miserable existence on the charity of the United States, being kept from starving only by the small quantities of bread and meat, which by order of the War Department I am allowed to issue to her. Merrill was all in favor of mercy to the convicted prisoners as soon as it could be shown there will be no renewal of their crimes. But justice demanded that he remind the department of their victims too. And then there was the fact that the overwhelming majority of whites here would attribute clemency to the Ku Klux to a desire for their favor or construe it into a confession that wrong had been done them. Nothing but the deepest conviction slowly reached lies behind these conclusions, the cavalryman wrote. The very worst of these men, if released tomorrow, would be received here by most of the whites, not as criminals, but to whom a great government had magnanimously granted pardon, but as heroes whose sufferings had been martyrdom for the rights of the South. And in spring of 1873, the pardons began. The Attorney General ordered that all remaining cases be suspended and that no new indictments be brought except in flagrant cases of murder. And I mean, there's so many profound portions of this book, but I think this one is one of the ones that touched me the most that you guys didn't go over, because not only does it hearken to what happened on January 6th, but it also shows the fecklessness. I put that in the chat earlier of the people that our freeman ancestors put our faith in. That's like right. A lot of things that we were doing in that time was based on the fact that we knew and we thought that the same side that we fought for was going to go all in for us, like we went in for them and why we went in for ourselves.
That's right.
And when that didn't happen, you know, that again goes to what our justice claim, because they left us with our asses hanging out. You know what I'm saying, so to speak.
But look, let me say,
go ahead.
Real quick, as you was reading that, the first thing that popped in my head was Trump pardoning all of the people that he pardoned. I got their names in my head and they just jumbled up right now, so I can't even run them off. But this dude just, all of these people that were convicted and sentenced to time, Trump would pardon them. We are witnessing the events of Reconstruction happening right before our eyes in a way that I don't think nobody else is chronicling except us right here at Be the Power, because we know that our ancestors are freedmen and we are what our freedmen ancestors were without doubt or contradiction. My bad. Go ahead, brother.
Nah. Listen, I like that, without doubt or contradiction. And even we take into account what I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it's the governor of Missouri. He pardoned that couple that pulled the guns.
That's right.
On those protesters, but then he was refusing to pardon our brother that had the mental defects that's been slated to be executed.
That's right.
So
that's right.
It's the same playbook, and that's why I was saying from the beginning. I mean, just the profound knowledge you guys, I mean, just developed and have to promote and to bring up this book at such a time as this. I think this book is the epitome of, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
That's
because
right.
Without this book, what has happened is
drop it on them, bro.
What has happened is we kind of what we do is we've been, as we know, the sons, I mean the daughters of the Confederacy and various other organizations and politicians, what they've done is they've done a masterful job at convincing us, the other demographics, and just the politics, the body politic at large, that racism is a difference of opinion. Like that's something that can be debated.
That's right.
And so, but when we read this book, like I put in the chat yesterday, we can understand. We see that this book and their ideology and the tactics that they use, this is the blueprint for it. It started way back after emancipation. Like when we talk about the states' right versus federal, like that's what it's about. It's about allowing them, like you said earlier, to run their states as mini kingdoms, because the federal government was the only thing standing in their way from governing as if the Civil War never happened and or they won it outright. And so, you know what I'm saying, reading this book, it was just bringing all that it just made it crystal clear for me. And that's why I just want to continue to thank you guys for promoting this book and having it be the book club. I look forward to the book clubs in the future. I'll definitely be a member and avid listener of those. And I think the last thing I want to say in regards to this particular excerpt is that we understand that out of this blueprint, out of this playbook, Brother Logic, I think, mentioned it, there's multiple tropes and white supremacist talking points that were birthed during this time.
That's right.
And one of them is the concept that, freedmen, we have this idea of we don't snitch on each other because we like to protect criminality. When we look at what happened during this time, the art of witness intimidation,
that's powerful,
was created.
Come on now.
And indoctrinated into our community by these Confederate loyalists, which I call the neo-Confederates.
That's right.
And so
that's right.
Facts.
Most of, if not all of, the racist tropes and pathologizing that has been dropped in our community comes from them. And if you read this book in its entirety, you can see a bunch of them just jump off the page as you're reading them.
They just slap you right in the face. They just pow. Yep. Oh, wow.
Straight
that's
up,
right,
man.
bro.
Like that's where that came from.
Man. Oh, I love it, man. I love it, man. That was powerful.
Yo, peace to the God divine, man. That's that.
And we familiar with you as well, brother. When we was following along with the, little hashtag movement, we remember you calling in sometimes and going in. So honors for coming through and bringing
peace to
some of that,
brother, man.
But
that's
some wisdom,
what
man.
I'm talking about right there. You hear me? That brother, you see, that's when you read this, like, it's in your DNA, it's in your soul. That brother, these revelations he's having, the information is the history, and the way the book was designed and written, it's just a compilation of primary sources and accounts of what happened in the actual way that it happened, and when you hear it and read it that way, it's quicken you and wake something up in the inside of a real freedman. And when we talk about, when I personally, and when we talk about you got to be educated in this freedman space, I'm not talking about no degrees from Harvard and Yale. You understand? Even though those are good assets to acquire if you can. What I'm saying is you got to be the best. You got to be the subject matter expert in freedmanism and freedman history. Why? Because that is the most powerful thing we can obtain. And the fight for equality, freedom, the fight for all of that, freedom, justice, and equality is so important, is that we have to put the best out. And you should want to be the best. You should say, damn, I don't want to go out there and embarrass my goddamn people and go out here and I'm not equipped and we take another L. That's how important this thing is. Now that's saying that we're scared to go out there and lose, but it's not about whether you lose or win. It's about how you fight and how well did you train and how well did you prepare yourself? How disciplined are you? How much did you train? See, when you put that effort in, and when we talk about the great sister, the freedman ancestor, Fannie Lou Hamer, it's it's her birthday today too. Happy birthday to the great sister warrior.
That's right.
Fannie Lou Hamer. We love her. If you don't think she had political education, you gotta do some more studying. You understand? Because the most powerful thing she had was given to her in a way that produced her and who she was, and we're trying to give it to you that same way right now. You understand? But a lot of y'all haven't figured it out yet, and we're just here trying to make y'all the best freedmen possible, because we know we see further down the future. We know where this thing is going, and we want the freedmen to be the best and most well-paired people when and where we have to be. And we got to force this education on y'all. We got to be tough on y'all. It's for your own good and your own evolution. You understand? So if you think Logic is an asshole and it's on family, I gotta be. You understand? Because this Freedman thing is serious, and I want y'all to be the best. And this is a real serious thing right now.
Yeah, we need generals and we need generalship right now. It's just as simple as that. And our freedmen people ain't ever done nothing but at the point of a sword. Brother Ali, you got anything to break down?
Nah, bros. I think y'all covered just about everything for this evening, man. I got to get ready to get up out of here though. Get
No,
ready for
definitely,
tomorrow, fam.
definitely,
You know.
man.
No
You know,
doubt.
so I had put the link in there. I was, maybe hoping one or two more people would have jumped on, but it's all good. Brother Divine from Brooklyn came through and shared a powerful measure from out of that book. Sister
Yes,
Juanita
sir.
said something interesting. She said it's not worse than they were her property. Now, I don't know about that. They were. I didn't finish. They were her property, and I can't lie. That was brutal. Them white women them white women mistresses were devils. And they speak about one of them in the bloody shirt, the wife of one of them devils. They said she was more brutal than her husband. I can't think of who she is right now, but I got her in my notes somewhere. I don't even
Yo,
know.
look, yo, check it. Like even White Too Long. Like there's a when it comes to
Woo.
straight horrific tales and
Mhm.
brutality,
Oh
we're not
God.
seeing that. We're not. There's some books out here that you got.
That's right.
We're gonna be suggesting some of them too because it's
That's
necessary,
right.
right? But what
That's
makes
right.
the Bloody Shirt special is all of the receipts and evidence of the criminal enterprise that overthrew Reconstruction and the detailed history of the Freedmen. That's what makes the Bloody Shirt so necessary. There are some horrific tales in here, yes, but there are some tales of triumph. There are some
That's right.
strategic pieces that we have to know. Our
Mhm.
heroes are here. So the Bloody Shirt is not just a horror book, even though a lot of it is horrific. But to me, it's like the foundational, almost most
Mhm.
necessary point to start your Freedman 101 education. You
That's
have to
right.
start here.
That second chapter of White Too Long, boy. Whoo! I'll tell you, man. Yo, that book is crazy. But our next book club book of the month is going to be White by Law. Make sure y'all get this book right now. We haven't solidified a date. We wanted to do it by the end of November, but we pushed back the Bloody Shirt book club. So book of the month. So I don't know if we're gonna do it by the end of November. I'm gonna talk with the fellas, and by next live stream, we probably make an announcement on social media. But there's a reason, like we're putting this thing together in a type of chronology right now. And after we do White by Law, we're gonna get back into From Here to Equality. People need to be re-educated. And we have a lot of new people that are coming to this platform as well. And they need to understand why Dr. Darity and A. Kirsten Mullins' book, From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century, is so important. They need to understand this. So these will be our next book.
Yeah, we doing this purposely as we starting from the past and bringing you right up to the present. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
That's why we got to start with the Bloody Shirt, and we're gonna bring you up to speed, right? So to really get the fullness of, like, because when we read From Here to Equality, we got to be seeing it from a different angle. We trying to let y'all get the education that you need to understand that high level information that's in From Here to Equality and be looking at that the right way. You know what I'm saying? So we starting from Reconstruction, and then we're gonna get where we need to get from here to equality. You know what I mean? And
that's right.
That book club is gonna be powerful. Yo,
that's another book.
Ooh, From Here to Equality is a masterful work. When I hadn't read a book like that in a long time. And when you talk about Freedmen history,
that's right.
Yo,
just
Kirsten Mullen and Dr. D went in on the history. A lot of people look at the economics, and the economics is beautiful, the book, but y'all, I think the history that was packed in that was overlooked. Yeah.
Think about what I said last night about even in the Bloody Shirt, it's Freedmen heavy. But by the time you get to the end, it's just like Negro and Black. In Dr. Darity's book, it's the same way. Why? Because the term freedman, it was so infrequently used. You see what I'm saying? It's the way
they made us like the dead rabbits in that movie, The Game of New York.
That's
right. You know what I'm saying? They was like, don't speak this name no more.
That's
nowhere.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right, bro. And you know, let me tell you, man, ever since we've been on the resurrection of this Freedmen name, things are happening. Let me shout out all of the people who send donations, especially somebody sent a sizable donation last night. Shout out to you if you're watching. We are pushing this thing forward. We're going to grow this platform out. That's always been the goal. We are still a young platform. We're only a year and some change old. We're still a fledgling platform. And people are usually looking to be entertained. It is what it is. And that's not what we do at Be the Power. We come here to educate. We come here to teach. We may share a laugh now and again, you know, especially when, you know, we get one of the pretendians to come on or some right-winger, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we flame broil them and send them on their way, and the family get a good laugh out of that. But we are an educational channel. We are Freedmen University. Our purpose is to help bring a political education so that when we start our runs for office, we already go in eyes wide open, seeing and knowing. Nobody can tell us anything. Take them old politicians, seat them in the back, and carry out this Freedmen law. Period. Carry out this Freedmen law. That's our job right now. It don't get no clearer. It do not get any clearer than this Freedmen history. Period.
That's right.
So yeah, real that's dope. Cynthia said, "Be the Power." I told Arthur we should both change our last names to Freedmen. I would love to get Sister Cynthia and Brother Arthur Ward on and build with them. You know, one day now they be writing some powerful articles. I couldn't read the whole last article that I think Sister Cynthia did, or was it? No, Brother Arthur said he's gonna work on it, but I want to bring them on because I want to have and I meant to tell y'all this earlier and it skipped my mind. I'm going to say it on air. So we can have a discussion about Warren Mosler's question, because Brother Arthur Ward hit me up and he was like, that's a powerful question. I've been pondering on that question. And I think that question is enough for us to have a whole conversation around. What you think about that, bro?
Man, that's dope. That's dope. I just don't want what she said to be lost, though. Right? That was powerful, Cynthia, and that's why I know Sister is like the Freedmen MVP up here, right? She understands. She got it. I don't know if it's the Chicago thing or what, but she got it. And so So like when you understand like what she said right here, right? And everyone like I've been thinking about the same thing myself. But what you can do, family, right? If one does not want to go and do a legal name change, but still wants to be able to proclaim that in a way that you can be recognized in the government in which you live, you can simply just write your name. I'll put a tweet out, right? And say, if you want to identify yourself to the Freedmen lineage, you can hyphenate Freedmen on your last name. And you can just, whenever you get the pen, right, you just mark that as your signature everywhere you go. Or every time you want to sign a document, that's your signature. You write your name always, wherever you write your name at, whether your name, John Doe Freedman. You understand? And now that's connecting you to a family. You understand? So it's just like ski is on the all the Polish people's name, and there's certain recognitions and name recognitions ethnically, right? So Freedmen is a protected, disaggregated, specific American group, and you can identify yourself that way just by writing your name and hyphenating Freedmen on the end. You know what I mean? Just like that. Right. You can also change your name to Freedmen, but you can also, that's another option for those who don't desire to do that.
It's just a way to show solidarity as a tribe. We just floating some things around, because we came up through certain movements that have already done these types of things. And we think that it's powerful. We're not saying you have to do it. We just suggesting
it's just we giving you tools to put in your tool bag, right? I'm just telling you, right? Whatever we're gonna put forth out here is gonna be right and exact. These are actual tools you can use to identify yourself. This is your lineage, right? So you can identify lineage that way. That is you can research it. That's an actual way to identify lineage. You understand? Hyphenate Freedmen, right? On your last name, you're solid. And you can even like go as far as to, if you want to do a name correction and change your name, their last name to Freedman, that's your own personal decision. You can do that. I might do that myself. I've been thinking about it. I want to. I changed my whole family name. You know what I mean? All of them, my babies and my daughters, and me, the wife, everybody. Right? That's something that all Freedman families really got to go home and sit and think about if they want to do.
Right.
Like this is all about building solidarity, consolidating ourselves, disaggregating ourselves. It's a beautiful display of solidarity if we all did that, right? Even if we just hyphenated it, you know.
Let me, Brother Divine from Brooklyn, right? You've been following the platform. When you seen the Freedmen, you know, obviously some people, they was like, at first. But then when you read a book like The Bloody Shirt and you see Freedmen, like what are your thoughts from the time you first started? I'm just curious. From the time that you first started to see us putting this Freedmen name back out again, and then you read a book like The Bloody Shirt where it's just Freedmen, these attacks on the Freedmen, these acts that were passed by the federal legislators for the Freedmen, et cetera, et cetera. What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. So first and foremost, I've always been like a student of just our history. So reading a lot of like Frederick Douglass's works and stuff, like the term, you would see the term come up. You know what I'm saying? Like in a lot of his writings and a lot of like the historical accounts of that day. But for me, before I got educated, I always thought Freedmen was something that was relegated to the group of our ancestors that was enslaved by the Native Americans. And so because that was a term that they used. And then it's not until, you know, after you guys have brought it up and, you know, it was the descendants of Freedmen and stuff like that, I was like, I want to take a closer look at this term as far as, you know, a lineage is concerned. I looked at the definition, saw that it was something that had ties to like, you know, the Roman Empire when they was, you know, when they had said that's what they called their freed slaves. And then when you go into the history though, before reading this book, because like I said, this book was illuminating. Before this book, you saw that this was actually on the books, in legislation. You know what I'm saying? And so when you look at, you know, the Freedmen's Bureau, well, actually, that's the first place I saw it after seeing it in like I said, some of like Frederick Douglass's writings and stuff like that. I have read The Color of Money. And reading that and seeing what was done to the Freedmen's Bureau and the Freedmen's Bank. And I was like, oh shit, like this is something that was set up for us.
That's right.
Specifically.
That's right.
And you know, because we already know, you know, that we're a specific group, that we're our own ethnicity and stuff like that. And there was things that was going on with us and for us when it was predominantly just us representing the Americans with melanin. And so when you see that's the term that was used, and you start going in to see what was going on with the Freedmen's Bank, Freedmen's Bureau, and like I said, some of what Frederick Douglass was writing, I knew that it was a tie to our group. And then just reading this book, it just illuminated that, because we hear. I was talking about this with some of the individuals I work with here in New York, as far as advocacy work that we're doing, and we hear the empty platitudes like, I wouldn't call them platitudes, but we hear like the generalizations like, oh yeah, we went through redlining, we went through domestic terrorism, we went through Reconstruction. Like you hear these things, but it's not until you hear a detailed account that you understand how intricate it was. You understand how specific it was, and you understand how surgical it was to target our specific group. And a book like this shows you that specificity, that targeting that surgical precision was based on us being the freedmen, because we were those emancipated slaves, because we emancipated ourselves. The type of vitriol and the hatred and the resentment that the Confederate loyalists had because we had done that, that's how you get the bloody shirt.
That's right.
Because you see it all throughout the book. Something that's coming to my mind as I'm talking about this is that you had, you know, we get this concept that, you know, not only is this a nation of immigrants, but that immigrants kind of went through the same thing we went through, right? But when you look at the origins of Hamburg, which was set up by, I think the guy's name was Schultz, who was a German immigrant.
That's right. That's right.
So the Confederates, they had, you know, maybe a little bit of open disdain, a little bit of dislike for him, but they never targeted him. They never told him they had to get out. This dude was able to set up an entire city in their region, in the South, when they were supposed to hate everybody that wasn't a Southern gentleman or gentlewoman. But he was able to set up an entire city, and he only left because it failed. But when Prince Rivers came along and did what he did and made it do what it do, now it was like, now we got to go over there and get them out the paint. We got to go kill them. We got to go make sure we don't have no nigga supremacy. And so you kind of get it, you understand that the other, like this concept of, I don't even know if this is a word, but the concept of otherization, it has limits.
Hey, we use it.
Okay. and those limits are based on lineage. And that lineage is us that is based on.
That's right.
That's right. See, this brother gets it, man. That's that Freedmen stuff. And that's why I harp on understanding the history.
I wonder if that's that New York.
You already know, because you know he tried to say it was that Chicago, right?
You see that little shot though, right? You know what it is, what it is. It is what it is, you know.
Yo, so but you see what I'm saying? Like this Freedmen, the history. So if you go, and this is, you knowing your history, and the people who knows their origin story is a powerful people. Just think about it, family. It's the origin story that gets you to your true potential and your true abilities, right? It teaches you about yourself. That's why even in every comic book got an origin story, right? You got to know how you got to be who you are, to be the best you, right? If you go to the Mexicans, they're going to tell you all about the Battle of Mexico and America. They're going to go in. A real Mexican patriot and a real Mexican
wait, hold on. Josh shooting at us.
Up?
I'm sorry, Logic. Josh shooting at us in the chat. Second gen from the South. He's shooting at all of us.
Yeah, that's true though. I am second gen.
That is true.
That is true. That is true. I ain't gonna lie.
I ain't ashamed of that.
Right.
We trace our, you know, my oldest ancestor. I done put her up on the program before. 1834, Purdue Plantation, right here in Georgia.
Right.
The oldest known ancestor, man. And then all my other people on my father's side, they come from Vicksburg and Webb, Mississippi, and all of these terrible places where all these horrific things happen. So I got the Freedmen blood coursing through my veins. You understand?
That's right.
And so when you have that blood coursing, that's what I'm saying. Nobody should know this history better than us. And it's the most important American history that you can know. Reconstruction was the most important event that happened in American history, and it was overthrown. And why was it? And it serves as a triple importance to us because we're the ones who were the key factor in making it happen. If it wasn't for us, it wouldn't have went like this our history, this our country. And when you read it like Brother Divine read it and he sees his history, you gonna get fired up just like that brother got fired up. That's why everybody must read this. If you're not a freedman, I mean, if you're a freedman, you call yourself a freedman and you want to be the best freedman you can be, you gotta master this bloody shirt history. You got to get into this. Is just going to lead you that way. And we going to take you higher and higher and higher. Trust me. This is where it starts. This is where it starts. We're going to take you higher.
That's right. You know, so another powerful night of discussion, family. Yeah, I just see your chat, right? I mean, your message in the chat. I'm researching the targeting of freedmen in New York City as we speak. Let me put this link in the chat for you all, because this is going to be one of the links that we come from. Dr. Garrity has, and Akehurst and Mullins Mullen in their book From Here to Equality also highlights some of the terror that we witnessed in New York. But this link that I just put in here, Slavery and Freedom in New York City. It's from a website called longreads.com, and they do not disappoint on the name because this is a long, long read. It's many of us are from the South in New York, but Brooklyn had its own slave plantation. So there are a lot of native New Yorkers that trace themselves back to slavery in that city. And we're going to get into
yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
New York was going to succeed from the Union. You got to get to that history.
New York
and
was
for
going
all
to succeed. That's right.
And people who are interested in that subject that Josh is talking about, researching, from the emperor of the freedmen himself, the godfather of the freedmen, a very important book on that subject is called Abolition Fanaticism in New York. That's the name of the book. It's called Abolition
Fanaticism.
Hold on, Fanaticism in New York by Frederick Douglass. That joint right there, I didn't think about it until Josh was talking about, what happened to the freedmen in New York. And then he popped in my head. That book from if you're not submerged and soaked in Frederick Douglass, you have to be soaked in Frederick Douglass. As freedmen, there's some people that we just have to know, like professors teach Nietzsche and they teach Aristotle and they teach Plato. And you have to know Frederick Douglass. You have to know Fannie Lou Hamer. You have to know Dr. King. You have to know Prince Rivers. Like, you have to know these people's works, and
because we only know them by name, right? Logic, right? We only know them by name. We don't know about I was about to say From Here to Equality. Where do we go from here? Chaos or Community, written by Dr. King. We don't know about Frederick Douglass's rebukes of his mentor, what was his name? Garrison, and the things that he wrote. Like, there's things that Frederick Douglass said that we just know their faces. We don't know their words. We don't know their works. And at Freedmen University, we're going to be providing that education. So y'all make sure y'all stick with us. Subscribe to the channel. We've been the same since day one. We ain't never, ever switching up because we don't do that over here. Not at all. But we're going to be on Clubhouse this Saturday. Family, we are going to be talking about deconfederatization. That's 3 o'clock Eastern time, Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. On Sunday, we're going to have a powerful conversation about deconfederatization. We are getting back in the Clubhouse space. We are spreading this message all over. There was a movie I watched. I think it was Freddy versus Jason. Yeah, it was Freddy versus Jason. So Freddy was starting to come back, but not enough people were dreaming about him, and everybody had vowed not to speak his name. But the more people brought him up, the more people spoke of him, the stronger he got, until he was able to appear in the nightmares of the people of the lineage that he was seeking to stalk and eliminate. And that's how we got to be. I don't know if that was a good analogy, but it's the one that popped in my head. We got to speak this freedman thing until everybody knows that the freedmen are back. And that's where our strength is going to come from. When people say the Freedmen Caucus we're not trying to be aligned with any party. We're only aligned with policy that's for the freedmen. And I just throw the term Freedmen Caucus out there just as a placeholder, right? But when they say the Freedmen Caucus, when they start breaking us down on what's that guy, King, on the CNN magic board, when he's like evangelical whites, he can't just say black no more. He's gonna have to say, but look at the freedmen populations down here in Georgia and in South Carolina and Louisiana and Mississippi, and how they voted. They voted largely for their own freedmen candidates, or anybody that was willing, before our candidates even get on the ticket, to push our freedmen policies. And we know that ain't too many of those, so we have to step it up ourselves, family. So, Brother Logic, did you have anything you want to say before we could get up off it? Before we get up off it?
Study, Freedmen, study, man. Government is the game and politics is how it's played.
Yes,
and you got to
sir.
understand, well, you know, what your playbook is. You got to get into that Freedmen playbook, family. We putting it together for you right now, man. We know, know us, same Freedmen time, friend, same BTP channel. Check us out. We're going to be back, man.
Definitely. Real quick, my life sister Rella said, can you do Twitter Spaces? I've actually done one of those before, and it's just like Clubhouse. Facebook even has a feature like that now. So we're exploring some things in some ways, but this is why we trying to put the information out there so we could be moving as a unit, as an organized unit, which is why we started the organization. So now we all talking the same thing. So now everybody can be in all of these different spaces without too much variance on what we're saying. That's how you build a strong movement, family. Brother Divine, being that you're on, did you have anything you wanted to share before we got up off air, brother?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to I think read something that I think sums it up. What we've been talking about. It's actually an excerpt from the book. If you don't mind, I think it'll take like 2 minutes.
No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
All right, cool. Good looking. So, well, first I want to say, I know you referenced it earlier. I looked it up while you was talking. When we were referencing, they were her property. It was Mrs. White. She was the wife of the colonel that Morgan bought the land from. That was the one that was more brutal than her husband with the slave.
That's right.
So Mrs. White. And so I wanted to read this excerpt. It's on page 216, and it's about Charlie Caldwell. And they heard too from the widow of Senator Caldwell, the colored man who on Governor Ames's orders had led his militia company on the march to deliver arms, who had been ready and willing to march to Yazoo City, even though it meant certain death, to confront the white army that had deposed Albert T. Morgan as sheriff, that was occupying the streets of Yazoo City like a Confederate cavalry brigade. She told the senators how her husband had gone out on a fox hunt on Christmas Day. He had come home in the evening, and an acquaintance had insisted he come down to Chilton's cellar to take a drink for a Christmas treat, and had drawn him by the arm, and he had reluctantly gone. And when they had clinked glasses, that was the signal, and someone shot him through the window. And then a friend, Preacher Nelson, had carried him up to the street because he said he didn't want to die in a cellar, but in the open air. And when he got up there, a whole crowd of white men were waiting, and they said, "Dead men tell no tales." And they pumped 40 shots into his body. And before he died, he said to the white man who had shot him, "Never say you killed a coward."
That's right.
Preacher Nelson told her that a braver man had never died than Charlie Caldwell. That's what it says in the book, but I want to add Senator Charlie Caldwell. And I'm saying that because to think that, you know, I always talk about how hidden our history is, like we're one of the greatest stories never fully told. But on top of that, imagine present day, someone not honoring and constantly calling the name of an elected official, a senator, that was brutally assassinated.
Talk to
and for me to have never heard the name Charlie Caldwell, obviously it's the fault of me, but it's not in the political lexicon to talk about this freedman that got elected as a senator and was assassinated in cold blood. And so with that, I just want to say we were freedmen then, we are freedmen still, and there's nothing like a freedman's will.
Woo! That's what I'm talking about.
Powerful. Yo, straight up, brother Divine.
We were
you gotta tap in, family. Like you gotta tap in with us, family.
Yeah, definitely tap in with us, bro. Let's build, man. Let's build. We got a couple people up top, so let's build offline sometime as well, man. We definitely need to chop it up, bro. For real. Yeah,
I think I'm following y'all on Twitter, so you can hit me in the inboxes there.
Definitely.
You know, whatever. I think I'm following all four of y'all, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely, I know I see yours come up in Logic's as well. So yeah, definitely, I'm definitely down for that.
Okay, definitely. Honest, brother. Honest for coming on and giving your measure on this particular book, this powerful book, man, The Bloody Shirt. You know, it wasn't necessarily the brutalities that we were pointing out. You know, some people in the chat were talking about what was worse, et cetera, et cetera. It was the chronology of how we got from there to here, how the term freedman has basically been replaced with the names that were badges of slavery: Negro, black, and colored. And today, black, all of these names, think about it, family. Besides Negro, Barack Obama did away with that, and really it was an antiquated term. You know, in the 80s, that wasn't necessarily a term people was using. But let's deal with colored and black. Colored now means colored people, people of color, rather. They don't say colored people, because if you say colored people, well, that means black folk. So they don't say it that way anymore. They say people of color. This is more bloody shirt-isms, right? The replacing. Not that I even like the name, but they gave that name to somebody else. Go to Federal Directive 15, pull up the racial classifications. Federal Directive 15 is going to show us that black is for anybody that has origins of any of the black racial groups in Africa. So anybody gets to come in and be this. This is why disaggregation of blackness is important, and why white by law will be our next book club, family. This will be our next book club. So we had a powerful past 2 days. A powerful past 2 days. This book is one of the most important books. If you haven't read it, make sure you read it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Peace, family. Y'all already know the saying of the platform. Don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.